Chapter 489. With the blood god's illusions in hand, the 49 river Styx blood sea true talismans in the foundation of the Blood God Sutra could not escape Chun Ang's calculation. In less than half a day, he had gathered 36 true talismans. At this time, the river Styx blood sea true talismans were clear. From Chun Ang's observation, it was worthy of being the true inheritance of the blood sea. It could break the void, communicate with the blood sea true water of the underworld, and cultivate this kind of filthy and evil dharma power. Although the blood sea true water was not one of the 7 great Khanate true water, it was still very magical. It was the filthiest true water in the universe. After Chun Ang obtained all 49 true talismans, he could refine the blood god's illusions dharma power into blood sea true water. He immediately captured the dozens of blood god's illusions, except for the murderer's true self. Chun Ang waved his hand and shot out 49 true talismans, which turned into a miniature blood river. It covered his head and extracted the blood light from the blood shadows of the blood god's illusions one by one. These blood lights were all filthy dharma power and souls. Except for a bit of true spirit, all of them were transformed into blood god's dharma power. The blood god's dharma power circulated in the blood river formed by Chun Ang's dharma power. Then it was refined into a drop of blood sea true water, which fell into Chun Ang's hand. Taoist master Mo's hundreds of years of dharma power, as well as the blood sea true water formed by his body and most of his soul, were only 3 drops. Among the cultivators killed by the murderer, Taoist master Mo's cultivation was not the highest, but he was in the top 3. Otherwise, he would not have been chosen by the murderer as a disguise. Chun Ang refined all the dozens of blood god's illusions, but he only obtained about 20 drops of blood sea true water. The blood sea true water merged into the heavenly river dharma power and formed a small blood river. It connected to an unknown space in the void and absorbed traces of blood chi to strengthen itself. The space connected to the river of blood must be the source of all the demonic Tao, the holy land of the great Azura, the boundless blood sea. Chun Ang allowed the blood sea true water to grow bit by bit. He silently used his primordial spirit to turn this magical power into a part of himself, and slowly comprehended it. His primordial spirit connected to the mysterious blood sea dimension through the blood river and absorbed the true water within. After a few hours, he suddenly comprehended some principles and transformed the blood river, absorbing a large amount of mixed true water that was the color of blood and turquoise from the void. The blood-like true water suddenly condensed into a turquoise color and expanded into a miniature Milky Way formed by over 100 drops of turquoise true water, drilling into Chun Ang's dantian. The Milky Way, formed by the turquoise true water, flowed into the heavenly river dharma power in the dantian without any obstruction. It blended with the other 3 types of true water and opened up another source of magical power. It was one of the 7 types of innate true water, the blue sky underworld. Among the 7 types of innate true water that Chun Ang cultivated, the blue sky underworld was the most mysterious one. The other 6 types of true water could still be found in the human world, but the blue sky underworld's root was in the manor of the dead, the land of reincarnation, and it was hard to find in the human world. Chun Ang originally thought that the true water would be the hardest to cultivate among the 7 types of true water. Unexpectedly, when Chun Ang's primordial spirit was comprehending the blood sea river Styx, he suddenly understood the principle of the blood sea river Styx being one. That was when he realized that the true water of the blue sky underworld was different from the other 6 types of innate true water. It was divided into 2 different states, yin and yang, clear and turbid. The blood sea referred to the filthy blood sea true water in the boundless blood sea, while the river Styx referred to the blue sky underworld. Therefore, the blood sea river Styx was also known as the blue sky underworld. The blood sea true water could also transform into one of the 7 types of Khanate true water, the blue sky river of underworld. With the help of the blood god, This true water dharma power that was the most difficult to cultivate was successfully cultivated. The spiral-like blue sky river in Chun Ang's dantian spun and transformed into a blood-red sky river. The sky river's dharma power transformed into the blood sea true water. The dharma power wrapped around his primordial spirit and rushed toward the top of his head. Chun Ang's body shook, and a blood-red light emerged from the top of his head. His primordial spirit was like a blood shadow, turning into an existence like the blood god. The changes within were truly astonishing. However, the other three types of true water in Chun Ang's body were still there. Soon, he opened his eyes and looked at the blood sea primordial spirit opposite him, which was like a blood shadow, the blood god. He was quite surprised. The blue sky underworld, or the blood sea true water, was the most nourishing of the 7 types of true water. It could even be used to attach to the primordial spirit, just like the dark female pearl of the green-robed patriarch and the snow soul pearl of the goddess of calamity Zheng. They were all treasures that could be cultivated into a second primordial spirit. The blood sea sky river contained a quarter of Chun Ang's dharma power. It was born as Chun Ang's second primordial spirit, and it could transform between the 2 types of true water at any time. The second primordial spirit formed by the blood sea true water was the blood god. The 49 blood sea true talismans also turned into river Styx true talismans and entered Chun Ang's primordial spirit, becoming the foundation of the second primordial spirit. Chun Ang's second primordial spirit smiled. With a point of its finger, it completely extracted the true spirits of the unlucky cultivators who were cultivated into the blood god. The rest of the souls that were contaminated by the blood god were sucked into its mouth, becoming nourishment for this primordial spirit incarnation, leaving only a little bit of true spirit. Looking at the muddle-headed appearance of the 10 cultivators, Chun Ang knew that if he allowed them to reincarnate like this, even if they were lucky enough to become adults again, they would inevitably become muddle-headed. They would need to reincarnate at least 6 times before they could complete their souls. He couldn't help but sympathize with them. He turned the blood river dharma power again, turning it into the blue sky river of underworld. He threw the true spirits of the cultivators into it and reincarnated 6 times. When they came out from the blue sky river, the true spirits finally repaired their souls and gave a deep bow to Chun Ang with gratitude. Chun Ang also consumed a lot of energy. He used up 3 drops of the blue sky river of underworld. He still bowed to them and said, "Fellow Taoists, it's really a pity that you were met with misfortune. However, I've already repaired your souls. Although your spiritual light was inevitably extinguished, your souls are still intact. If you're lucky in the future, you can still enter the great Tao. The scoundrel who committed such an evil deed will also have his retribution. Everyone, it's getting late. Your souls are weak, so you shouldn't stay in the world of the living for long. Allow me to send you into reincarnation again." With a wave of his sleeve, the blue sky river rotated and sucked the 10 souls into it, throwing them into the place of reincarnation in the unseen world. After these blood god's sons entered reincarnation again, only the culprit was left. If Chun Ang hadn't understood the principle of the blood sea and river Styx being one, he would have needed to slowly deal with him and carefully remove his consciousness. However, his blood sea true water dharma power was more profound than the blood god sutra. Compared to the blood sea primordial spirit, the ability of the blood god son was like a big magician meeting a small magician. Chapter 490. While reading the memory of the murderer, Chun Ang used the blood sea real water to sense the mastermind on the other side through the secret hand in the murderer's body. Because he was afraid of concealment, he could only disguise the demonic thought as a little distracting thought and slightly pry into some superficial things. Now there was only a blank space, without any useful information. Chun Ang turned the evil thought into a fire and secretly eroded the murderer's true self. The master was the eldest disciple of the West Kunlun Old Devil, Xianyuan the Great, the 5 obscenities supreme, and the disciple was nicknamed the Little Silver Bug Chain Gang. A few years ago, Xinyuan the Great obtained a scroll of devil scripture from somewhere. As the eldest disciple, the 5 obscenities supreme was taught by the devil scripture. He skinned himself and refined him into a blood god. Even his 9 disciples were killed by him. The little silver Bugchin gang was the 2nd disciple of the 5 obscenities supreme. He saw his master sucking the blood of those disciples who refused to follow him and refining them into blood god. He made up his mind and suffered many devil trials. He became the 1st disciple under the 5 obscenities supreme to refine a blood god. He was entrusted with the great task of coming to the South Sea to rescue an old senior of the devil cult. Of course, the 5 obscenities supreme was not being kind. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that Gu Hao Zi's vitality had not recovered to offer him to his master, Xinyuan the Great, as a tonic. Needless to say, if it weren't for Chun Ang's interference, there was an 80% chance that he would be able to accomplish this. But now, not only did he give Chun Ang the chance, even the trace of blood god that he used to monitor his disciple had become a way for Chun Ang to control him. Chun Ang could faintly feel that the 5 obscenities supreme was in the South Sea. He was afraid that he did not trust his disciple, so he followed behind secretly and could grasp the progress at any time. But the most important thing now was to refine Gu Hao Zi into a great Azura supreme demon. As long as Gu Hao Zi was under Chun Ang's control, the 5 obscenities supreme would not be able to escape from Chun Ang's hands. The female cultivator Tan Yun thought that Chun Ang was interrogating the murderer, so she did not disturb him for the past few days. It was not until Chun Ang had stayed in the golden ship for a long time that she could not help but ask him to go with her to see Gu Hao Zi and report the matter. Chun Ang saw the greenish-black color on her forehead and knew that this was not of her own will. Most likely, Gu Hao Zi had spied her secretly and tricked her to test on Chun Ang. This was why Chun Ang had kept Gu Hao Zi. Of course, he would not alert the enemy. He pretended that nothing had happened and said to Tan Yun, "That person's spells were very powerful. I cannot ask with him. Chin Shun, with. I only Gu Hao Zi's god." He did not want to with him. Chun Ang's spell got on Gu with his background, he said, and said. With him. He with and said. Of. Tan Yun's expression suddenly changed. Then what should we do? Chun Ang pondered for a moment and said, "There are 3 ways to deal with this. The best way is to ask for help. Amei is the leader of the right path and is the most helpful. I know that the 3 elders of Amei live in the East Sea fishing for AOG. If we go and ask for help, I'm afraid that they will not lack the treasures of true fire and the essence of pure yang. Even if we cannot gather them in a short time, we do not need to be afraid of the person behind that person." Tan Yun was about to show a happy expression, but suddenly the black gas on her forehead pressed down. She frowned and said, "But the journey to the East Sea is far. Now that that person has been captured by you, I'm afraid that person behind us will be alerted today. How will we have the time? Please tell us the next 2 ways." Chun Ang knew that Gu Hao Zi would not choose this method. Gu Hao Zi was not a real wandering celestial from overseas. If Amei knew about this, who would they kill to kill the demon? This method was only used to numb Gu Hao Zi. Now that it was disrupted by him, Gu Hao Zi might have already noticed the venerable of 5 aphrodisiacs plan. It was when he was at a dead end that the trap behind him would be fruitful. Just as I said before, let fellow Taoist Gu Hao Zi switch to cultivating the Great Yin form refining technique and refine his slew into the Great Yin true form. Even without true fire, yang, and supreme treasures, he would still be able to break the restrictions. The female cultivator Tan Yun sighed helplessly and said, "If there is really no other way, then this is the only way. Let me talk to Senior Gu Hao Zi then. The worst way is to take a risk. I have already cultivated the Samadhi true fire to the primary level. If I am careful, I can already melt the 10,000-year-old cold flower. At that time, I will first move the body of Gu Hao Zi's primordial spirit and find the treasure to dispel the cold." Chun Ang said the 3rd way. As expected, Tan Yun rejected it immediately and said, "I'm afraid this is too risky." Chun Ang didn't mind. His other two plans were meant to force Gu Haozi to choose the middle option. It seemed feasible, but for Gu Haozi, who was hiding his identity, it was absolutely impossible for him to choose. It was only used to numb him. After the two of them came to a decision, they dived into the eye of the sea together and came to the cold spring glacier again. Tan Yun reported the situation to Gu Haozi. Gu Haozi had already planted a secret spell on Tan Yun. He only pretended to listen for a while and saw the figure in the glacier cupping his hands and saying, "Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist Chun. Please help me." Chenong smiled faintly and said, "That's easy. It's just that the tying form refining technique is very time-consuming. I'm afraid you won't have time to cultivate it, and that person will come to you. His magic power is 100 times stronger than the disciple I caught. I'm also not his match. I'm afraid this place can't be hidden from him. If you are at a critical moment and he comes to disturb you, it will be very dangerous." Gu Haozi sighed and said, "This is fate. If that's the case, there's still a possibility of passing the tribulation. If I don't do anything, I'm afraid I'll have to face the tribulation." Chenong pondered for a moment and said, "If that's the case, I can't just stand by and watch. The tying form refining technique still needs the tying star to store the primordial spirit. I know you will borrow the power of the magic treasure to draw the power of the tying star down. Not to mention that it will take a long time. It will also cause a huge commotion. I have a pearl made of tying true water here. I can give it to fellow Taoists to cultivate." After he said that, he took out the tying god pearl. As expected, it was rippling with the power of tying true water. It was just an embryonic form and not completely cultivated. There wasn't even a restriction. This made Gu Haozi feel more at ease. He saw that it was indeed tying true water, and the pearl was just an embryo of a 1,000-years-old profound pearl. It didn't even have a restriction or a talisman. So what kind of trap could it have? Moreover, this tying true water was the purest. It couldn't hide any insidious restriction. How would he know that there was an anomaly like Chunong? So he accepted it with ease. The embryo of the profound pearl could not enter the glacier, so it was held in midair by Gu Haozi. With Chunong and Tan Yun protecting him, the huge tying god pearl suddenly released strands of tying true water. Like silver moonlight, it seeped into the glacier and shone on Gu Haozi's remains. It turned into a silver cloud and entered his 7 orifices. The greenish-black corpse gas on Gu Haozi's face suddenly faded a little. After he swallowed that bit of tying true water, it suddenly merged with the nature of Hamba and dissolved that bit of corpse gas fire poison. It cleared Gu Haozi's primordial spirit, and the Xian ice prohibition on his body loosened. He said in surprise, "Fellow Taoist technique is really useful." Chapter 491. Chenong laughed and said, "It's good that I can help you. However, there isn't much tying true water left in the tying pearl. I'm afraid it won't be enough for you. Let me guide the moonlight from the sea. It'll be better if we use both at the same time." Tianjing too. His diligence not only made Tan Yun look at him, but also changed Gu Haozi's opinion of him. He thought, this kid is so warm-hearted. Even though he's a little arrogant, he's not without merit. Even though he doesn't respect me, he's very proactive in helping me escape. He must be someone with a cold face but a warm heart. Even though I still have to kill him after I escape, I might as well give him some essence blood to turn him into a zombie and take him as my disciple. Chenong took out the submerged glass mirror that he got from Taoist Mo and shone it on the sea. A ray of moonlight shone down. His second primordial spirit secretly came out of his body and turned into the blue sky underworld. A bit of green water blended into the moonlight and shone on Gu Haozi's remains. The mana from the blue sky underworld seeped into Gu Haozi's body and was refined by him according to the tying form refining technique. The nature of the water remained the same and was best at nourishing the spirit. Gu Haozi instinctively longed for it. If it wasn't for Chunong's primordial spirit hiding in it, it would have been really beneficial. He only felt that the mana was nourishing his body and thought it was the tying form refining technique. Even though he was secretly wary of the tying pearl, it was only a cultivator's instinct. He never suspected that there was anything wrong with the moonlight that Chunong guided. The Tying true water and blue sky underworld were the world's most precious treasures. Who else could take them out except for Chunong? They were also the two types of true water that could help the tying form refining technique the most. In addition, Gu Haozi had accumulated a lot. Even though the essence of the 1,000-year-old jellyfish eroded his body, it inadvertently helped him understand the principles of using water to fight fire and suppressing demons with mysterious ice. Under the suppression of the cold spring, the demonic fire no longer eroded his primordial spirit. This was originally an arrangement made by the mighty being who had sealed him to persuade him to turn over a new leaf, but also allowed him to comprehend many wondrous techniques of the demonic path. Now that he was using the true form of Een to temper his demonic body, the great Azura supreme demonic body had truly taken half a step forward, and he had already reached a realm that no one had ever achieved before. Chun Ang's second nascent divinity lurked within his body. Whatever Gu Haozi's nascent divinity comprehended in thought, he transmitted all of it to Chunong, allowing him to understand. Even Gu Haozi's cherishing talent was detected by him, which made Chunong smile. However, this was the transformation of the one and only great Azura supreme fiend god in this world. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it was clearly displayed in front of Chunong. Even if Chunong was an anomaly, it was still a great harvest. If other devil cultivators saw this, it would be the supreme devil scripture of this world, enough to make the old devils of West Kunlun break their heads. The demon body was just lacking a bit of primordial spirit that hadn't melted yet. As long as this bit of pure yang was melted, it would become the supreme fiend god and give birth to the first heavenly devil in this world. Gu Haozi's primordial spirit transformed into a trail of devil fire and escaped from the glacier. It entered the Tai Een divine pearl and slowly guided the moonlight, tempering that bit of pure yang in his primordial spirit. When the pure yang turned into Tai Een, it could enter into the demon body and trigger the transformation of the supreme fiend god. Now that the general trend had been set, Chunong didn't bother to hide his support anymore. With a gentle wave of his hand, the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation was activated with a loud bang. The formation drew the power of heaven and earth, projecting a few thousand miles of moonlight here. It could be seen from the surface of the sea within 10,000 miles. A bright moon grew bigger and bigger, occupying half the sky. However, there was a gap that was slowly eroding the Tai Een. Heavenly Dog engulfs the moon. At this moment, Gu Haozi already felt that something was wrong. He roused his spirits and shouted, "Chun Daoyu, why are you doing this?" Chun Ong smiled faintly. "Fellow Taoist Hanba, your master Chun is refining your consciousness. Fellow Taoist, please sacrifice yourself to prove your Tao and achieve the supreme fiend god body of great Azura. You can be my arm and become my incarnation." The female cultivator Tan Yun at the side was dumbfounded. She asked with a trembling voice, "Chun Daoyu, Senior Gu Haozi, you too?" She no longer had any value to him, so why would Gu Haozi still keep her? With a thought, he triggered the hidden hand in her body. Tan Yun suddenly screamed, and her eyes turned red. She wanted to pounce towards Chun Ong. Chun Ong had already made up his mind. He stretched out his hand and flicked his finger. The Samadhi devil, refining true fire, circled around her body, refining away the hidden hand in her body and allowing her to regain consciousness. "Chun Daoyu, who exactly is this Gu Haozi?" Tanyan still had no idea that she was being plotted against. She asked Chunong in shock, "What exactly happened?" Chunong said slowly, "Fellow Taoist Tan, that Gu Haozi is not a senior cultivator. He is a seal drought demon. He wants to trick us to save him. Allow me to refine this evil creature first. Then I will explain to fellow Taoist." As he finished, he scattered his crown and performed the heavenly dipper steps, performing the heavenly demon dance. In terms of the devil path, Chun Ang's research was even deeper than Gu Haozi's. Now that he was using the devil to counter the devil, how could he resist? Seeing that his primordial spirit was sinking again, Chun-Ong used the lunar pearl to keep his real spirit. He carved the blood sea true water onto the 49 river Styx true talisman and refined it with a samadhi devil refining true fire. Internally, his primordial spirit was cultivating the lunar shape refining technique. Externally, Chun-Ong used the Blood God Sutra and the supreme magic sacrificial refinement of the devil path. Gu Haozi could only curse endlessly. What a ruthless thief! How dare you, the righteous path of the mystic door? No, this is the spell of the devil path. Such a profound spell of the devil path. Who exactly are you? He cursed for 3/4 of an hour. Seeing that his last shred of self was about to sink, he knew Chun-Ang's methods. He understood that after he sank, his real spirit might not be able to escape. He turned around and begged, "Chun Daoyu, please let my real spirit reincarnate. I, Gu Haozi, will never forget your great kindness." Chun-Ong sighed and said, "It's not that I want to torture you. It's just that the supreme demon body of great Azura, that I need you as a material. I don't need your soul to dissipate and your spirit to be destroyed. I only need to refine you into a talisman consciousness, an artificial intelligence-like consciousness, so that the power of this supreme technique of the devil path won't be affected. Please grant me my wish, fellow Taoist." This time, Gu Haozi didn't even have the strength to curse. He just cried, and his primordial spirit turned into a bit of real spirit and merged into the lunar pearl. He refined the lunar blood demon and threw it into the transforming demon body. Like water falling into a pot of oil, the demon body suddenly changed. With the second primordial spirit presiding inside and Chun-Ang's real body responding from the outside, the supreme demon body's transformation went smoothly. Not long after, the remains of Gu Haozi's drought demon body grew many black scales. A wave of demon fire burned through the restriction, allowing this extremely ugly and tall great Azura body that was wrapped in demon fire to break free from the glacier. The wondrous appearance of heavenly flowers and the sea of blood gushed out from the ground. Chun-Ang's second primordial spirit that sat in the demon body opened its mouth and sucked in the endless sea of blood in the void. In an instant, the world of Shu Mountain was as red as blood. The hearts of the surrounding experts were shaken. West Kunlun, East Sea. People everywhere in the great eastern wilderness and the divine central continent exclaimed in shock, "A heavenly demon has actually appeared. Has the devil path flourished?" Chun-Ong didn't have time to care about the impact of his actions. He focused on analyzing and promoting the changes of this supreme demon body. The scaly body of the great Azura demon king twisted and turned into Chun-Ang's appearance, standing side by side with his real body. The wondrous fragrance of heavenly flowers in the air gradually faded. The sea of blood on the ground had long been sucked clean by the blood-colored light well behind the demon body. Chun-Ang's blood sea primordial spirit had reached great success among the 7 types of true waters, becoming a heavenly demon. Now, other than the supreme demon body of the great Azura, there was also the primordial spirit of the river Styx blood demon hidden within. Even if the two were separated, they were still devils of the heavenly demon level. They were both complete versions of Chun-Ong. The river Styx blood demon Ji said, "Today I am Forefather River Styx." The supreme heavenly demon body opened its mouth and used the heavenly demon true voice. "I am enlightened Apocalypse." Chun-Ang's primordial spirit shook its head and said, "It's just my second primordial spirit and a spare corporeal body. Even though the fate energy is separated, it's just to confuse the heavenly secrets. Their essence is the same. My third true name is still Chun-Ong. However, in order to separate the fate energy and conceal the heavenly secrets, I can't say my true name. Otherwise, the fate energy will be the same, and it will be easy for others to predict. The two of you shall call yourselves these 2 names for now." Chapter 492. Although the great Azura's supreme demon body was an armored monster with an extraordinary face, there was no flaw when it transformed into Chun Ang's original appearance. This was because the supreme demon body was not a living creature, nor was it made of flesh and blood. It was like the celestial beings of the Nirvana world and the ancient innate gods. It was the manifestation of the great Tao. Therefore, it was ever-changing and did not have a fixed form. Sounds of nature, the devil body clad in towering armor, with red arms and feet stepping on a Chinese alligator, was only a Dharma form. It did not prevent Chenong from walking with his own appearance. Moreover, even a perfected golden immortal wouldn't be able to notice such a change. If it was not for this supernatural power, how could the Asura in the Blood Sea compete with Buddhism? It even tempted many sons of Buddha to fall. With the transformation of Chun Ang's demon body, it was not difficult for others to see through it. However, there was a flaw in Tanyan. Although she did not know much, if she fell into the hands of Xianyuan the Great, it would not be difficult for him to see the problem with his wisdom. He immediately separated a strand of blood god and planted it into Tanyun's mind. With the natural function of the blue sky underworld water, he modified her memory. Now, she only remembered that Qin Gang, the blood god, intended to plot against Guhao Zi and expose his identity as Hamba. However, she did not expect that Hamba would devour many blood gods and trigger the transformation of the demon body. At the critical moment, Chenong activated the prohibition spell. With the help of the cold spring spell, he resealed Hamba, who had not completed his transformation. Qin Gang also escaped with serious injuries. Now that Guhao Zi's demon body had been formed, the prohibition spell could not hold him for long. Therefore, the two of them went around asking for help. Then he sent this memory to the blood god's mana, hidden in the demon body. Through a vague feeling, the Lord of Five Desires knew the truth. In a cave of the sea country 10,000 miles away, a man dressed in southern barbaric clothing suddenly jumped up in rage. He turned into a streak of bloodlight and sucked up all the essence and blood of the people who were captured outside the cave. He didn't even let go of the souls who were usually unwilling to commit sins and reincarnate. His illusionary figure dissipated, revealing a bloody shadow with a blurred face and a ferocious and terrifying face. Lord Five Evils sensed Qin Gang, who was faintly discernible and intermittent, as if he could die at any moment. He yelled, "You've ruined my plan. How can I let you go?" He used his mana and the blood god's mana tortured Qin Gang until he was hovering between life and death. It was only because of the important matter that he stopped and sent a thought over. "Get over here and see me." When Chenong received the voice transmission, he sneered coldly. He had already used his Yuan Shan Heavenly Star to pinpoint the position of Lord Five Desires. He also took the opportunity to trigger his nameless Een Flame and sent the Blood Sea True Water into his body. Lord Five Desires only felt anger burning in his heart. Although he used his true Qi to suppress the demonic thoughts, he didn't take it to heart. The heart of the demon sect was actually the most important because there were often external demons and internal demons causing trouble. It was easy for the demons to devour one's true self and be doomed eternally. However, how could these demons have such knowledge? They just treated it as a normal reaction. Those old demons who really understood the situation didn't want to remind them, afraid that it would increase their own doom. How could the blood god planted by Chun Ong be ordinary? If Lord Five Desires didn't have any distracting thoughts, it would be fine. Otherwise, every distracting thought would be nourishment for the blood god's growth. As long as one couldn't see one's true self and understand the difference between the thoughts of one's true self and the nameless distracting thoughts, there would be countless distracting thoughts every day. Sooner or later, the blood god of river Styx would devour one's true self and become a blood god controlled by Chunong. Moreover, during this process, one wouldn't feel anything wrong. Instead, one's magic power would increase by leaps and bounds. If one didn't understand that this was a sign of the blood god's magic power being eroded, one would mistakenly think that the magic power of the blood god sutra required endless, distracting thoughts to improve. If Xianyuan the Great was here, he would naturally be wary of the distracting thoughts and deal with them by suppressing the external demons. Although it couldn't remove the hidden danger, it wouldn't be difficult to make it difficult for Chun'ong to use his methods. However, although Lord Five Desires was valued by Xianyuan the Great, how could he understand the principle of the demon sect using demons to control demons and not to be controlled by demons? He thought that the demon sect could do as they pleased, but he didn't know that there was a principle of following one's heart and nature. If one didn't follow one's true nature, one would be considered an external demon in the demon sect and needed to be eradicated. The demon sect followed the heart, while the Buddhist sect collected the heart. Although the methods were different, the heart didn't change. It was a round, shining, indomitable heart that couldn't be worn down by thousands of tribulations. Therefore, the Buddha and the demon were two sides of the same body. If Chun'ong manifested it with the blood sea true water, it would be the river Styx blood demon primordial spirit. If it manifested with the blue sky netherworld true water, it would be the Ksitigarbha's great wish Dharmakaya. Just as Chun'ong was slowly savoring the Buddha and the demon sect, the female cultivator Tanyun had already woken up. When she saw Chun'ong, she immediately asked, "Did you let the demon escape?" When she heard that the seal was intact, she heaved a sigh of relief and said, "It's all because I was blinded by lard that I was deceived by him and almost caused a disaster. Chen Daoyu, that demon is very powerful, so the cold springs restriction won't be able to trap him for long. Fellow Daoyu, please go and invite your friends to come and slay the demon. I will also go and invite Xian Ru, Shun Nun, and the three celestials of Eastern Sea. We must refine him to death." This idea of hers was originally planted by Chun'ong, so how could he refuse? He nodded and said, "That's how it should be." He then used the golden ship to send her up. After Tan Yin bid farewell to him, she used the Ice Soul Divine Light Escape and went straight to Eastern Sea. Chun'ong calculated that it would take about 3 months for her to call for reinforcements, which was enough for him to stir up a storm. Immediately, his physical body transformed into a black-clothed, cold-faced young man. Looking at the golden ship beneath his feet, he smiled and said, "This treasure is too eye-catching. I'm afraid I can't use it anymore." Then, he reached out and wiped the 12 Moons Waterscape Sword. The water-colored sword light's gold attribute was awakened, and a layer of silver hairs covered it. The One Sky water banner in his left hand shook, and it turned into a black banner. His expression was cold, and his hair was disheveled. He wore a black Taoist robe and a pair of straw sandals. He held a demonic banner in his hand, and he looked like an unorthodox cultivator. With a shake of his hand, a water mirror, circular light appeared. After taking a look at his own appearance, Chun'ong nodded in satisfaction. Then, he used the silver conveyance light and went straight to where the venerable One of Five Desires was. The celestial river's mana corresponded with the celestial stars, and it merged with the sword light. Then he teleported thousands of miles in the air and landed on a bustling sea. This sea country had a flourishing population. There were dozens of islands with a population of about 4 to 5 million people. However, the system was rather peculiar. It was a sea country ruled by dozens of clans, unlike the Great Ming Dynasty, which had a common ruler. These clans were the rulers of the islands, and most of them were cultivators of unorthodox schools from overseas who had mana. They settled down here and established their clans. The population of the sea country depended on them to live, and they were considered the private properties of the cultivators of the unorthodox schools on the islands. The children of these cultivator clans ate and wore the same things as the nobles, and their words were the law. Because of this, the people on the island were no strangers to cultivators. When they saw Chun'ong's conveyance light from afar, someone came to welcome him. Chun'ong saw that the island was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. There were golden flowers and silver trees everywhere, and the stairs were made of white jade. There were even 3 tall pavilions built at the port. The beams were made of sandalwood, and the pillars were made of gold and jade. Then, he saw a gray conveyance light descending on the tall pavilion. Someone went up to welcome him, and the conveyance light descended as well. He saw a rich man dressed like a green-robed butler coming up, and he asked, "Is there a happy event here? Why are you welcoming cultivators from all over?" The green-robed butler smiled and bowed. "Immortal master, you may not know this, but our island master, Old Man Bai Yin, is celebrating his 200th birthday. He has invited immortals from all over. As long as they are willing to come, they will be given gifts. Immortal master, please come with me." Chapter 493. Chun Ong followed the green-clothed butler and slowly learned about the situation. This island was the largest and most populated island in the archipelago. The clan on this island was the bloodline of the rogue cultivator, Old Man White Crag. They had settled here for 100 years. Because Old Man White Crag's surname was Liu, they were called the Liu clan. The White Rock Elder was also one of the individual cultivators in the archipelago with the highest cultivation. He was already an individual immortal and was quite famous overseas. The status of overseas Taoist cultivators was highly respected. Along the way, Chenong was also treated as a distinguished guest. The steward in green brought him to the front of a mansion. Another 2 servants came up to invite him to settle down in the building, and 4 maids came up to serve him. Chenong couldn't stand it and asked them to leave. This building was in a corner of the huge mansion. Outside the window, there were gardens everywhere. It occupied hundreds of square meters, and there were more than 300 pavilions. Even the Ming Dynasty's palace couldn't compare. Thinking of the sea people on this island who could only live in thatched houses, were skinny and had no clothes to cover their bodies, Chenong couldn't help but sneer. Although he sensed that the Lord of 5 Aphrodisiacs was in the most gorgeous building, Chenong didn't want to act rashly. Every day, he only used spells to attract the Son of Blood and devoured his original self. 3 days later, someone came to invite the owner of this place, Immortal White Rock, for his birthday. When Chenong arrived at the banquet hall hosted by the Old Man White Crag, he was among the last few people. Presumably, the Liu family did not pay much attention to him. When they invited people, they treated him according to their relationship and abilities. Seeing that Chenong was young, they did not take him seriously. Chenong arrived late and had to sit with the last one. He didn't mind. When Chenong arrived, an individual cultivator who was sitting near the front came out and shouted, "The barbarians of the Black Sand Island are here to perform spells for the White Rock Elder to celebrate his boundless longevity." This name sounded familiar to Chenong. He seemed to have killed a person who claimed to be from the Black Sand Island in the Mermaid Kingdom's Cheonghai Kingdom's palace. Now that he heard it, the omen was not good. The entire Liu family should be wiped out. Then, Man Xian cupped his fist toward a pale-faced young man who was standing beside Old Man White Crag. He wore a golden ring in his hair and said, "Congratulations to Prince Lu Guan. May you live a long life and enjoy immortal happiness forever." The young man grinned and said, "Uncle Man, you don't have to be so polite. Please congratulate Grandfather on my behalf. I have a blood coral collected from the bottom of the sea. If you can make Grandfather happy, I will give it to you." When the man heard this, he was overjoyed. He bowed and said with a flattering smile, "Thank you for your reward, Your Highness." He made a comical expression, causing the young man to laugh out loud. One of the wandering cultivators beside him whispered, "Young Master Liu may be young, but he is already the #1 young hero of the 46 islands. He is indeed a cultivation genius." The person beside him raised his voice even louder. "Yes, I heard that young Master Liu can already control the sword and fly in the sky. It's really amazing." Although the 2 of them whispered to each other, everyone in the hall could hear them. Who in the hall could not tell what they were thinking. Looking at the proud look on the young man, Lu Guan, many of them scolded in their hearts, "Bootlicker." Even Old Man White Crag, who was sitting on a main seat, had a happy look on his face. He stroked his beard and laughed. He turned his head to the left and whispered something to a barbarian with triangular eyes. It was obvious that he was praising his grandson. This man was Xian Yuan the Great's first disciple, Lord of 5 Desires. Chenong came here for this man and couldn't help but take a few more glances. Unexpectedly, Lord of 5 Desires was very sharp. He suddenly raised his head and looked back. His mana was not as strong as others, but he could tell that Chenong was not an ordinary person. Not to mention anything else, Just the aura he exuded was something that no one present could compare to. Instantly, he became interested and looked at Chenong unexpectedly. His gaze was seen by someone sitting below, and he was instantly angered. Lu Buan's happy look disappeared, and he could no longer maintain his calmness. He cursed in his heart. Where did this kid come from? How dare he spoil my plans? Lord of Five Desires is a direct disciple of the West Kunlun sect. She is the first disciple of enlightened master Xinyuan the Great. My grandfather had to beg many favors before she was willing to look at me. If I were to become her disciple, I would never be able to enjoy her for the rest of my life. This kid is young and good-looking. Judging from Reverend Five Desires' expression, it seems like he is quite interested in him. You dare to spoil my plans. I will make sure you suffer the consequences. Although he was shrewd, he couldn't help but reveal his true colors in his anger. Man Xian had already started his performance. He breathed out a cloud and waved his hand. Many golden-armored deities and high-crowned true immortals flew out from his sleeves, riding dragons and cranes. A heavenly palace appeared in the cloud. There were immortals feasting and heavenly maidens dancing. Among them, the man sitting on the main seat was the Emperor of Heaven. Coincidentally, he had the appearance of Old Man White Crag. The first crown prince also had the appearance of Lu Buan. Instantly, the hall was filled with cheers, but Chenong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The celestial emperor from the upper realm let out a sigh. The 18 generations of ancestors of the Lu clan were going to die. He didn't know what kind of courage he had to have to use this as a show. Indeed, the more stupid one is, the bolder one is. Even if he knew that the celestial emperor from the upper realm wouldn't cause trouble, Mauname wouldn't dare to do this, even if they were given 18 times more courage. Yet, he saw it in the banquet of a heretical aristocratic family that was like an ant compared to Mauname. Chenong actually had a feeling that this trip was not in vain just because of this matter. At this moment, the performance had reached its climax. Man Exon pointed his finger, and a rope flew out and hung on the cloud palace. He climbed up the rope and disappeared into the clouds. Then, a little man with the same facial features as him came out of the heavenly palace. He first kowtowed to the Emperor of Heaven, then to the Crown Prince of Heaven, and was rewarded with a celestial peach. Then, he flew down from the clouds. In a flash, Man Xian jumped down from the clouds. He held a big peach in his hand and presented it to the celestial emperor. Man Xian went to the heavenly palace and asked for a peach from the celestial emperor to present to Old Man White Crag and His Majesty Lu Buan. May the Old Man Xian live as long as the heavens and enjoy immortal happiness forever. As soon as he said this, everyone cheered. Many people took the opportunity to bow down and shouted in unison, "May the Old Man Xian and the Crown Prince live as long as the heavens and enjoy immortal happiness forever." The flattery of these people caused Chenong to be exposed. There were only a few people sitting still in the hall like him, and he was the only one sitting below, which made him stand out. Old Man White Crag was displeased when he saw this, but he didn't want to cause trouble for the birthday celebration, so he pretended not to see it. Lu Buan was even more furious, and secretly gave Man Xian a look. Man Xian understood and suddenly said, "The king of hell and the underworld heard about the Old Man Xian's birthday celebration, and he also sent a congratulatory gift. Allow me to get it for the Old Man Xian." He waved his hand, and a black fog appeared on the ground. It really looked like the abyss of the 9 Earths, and there was a ghost city underneath it. Oxhead, Horseface, Yinjun, and the Emperor could be seen vaguely. Chapter 494. Chenong could only see illusions forming in front of him. It was as if he was in the 18 levels of hell, filled with the torture of evil spirits. How could he not know that he had fallen into someone's trap? Although this kind of thing can hardly confuse him, the naked eye can still see the surrounding hall. The surrounding guests all have a look of watching a good show. His own image is also projected, and the illusion is about to be captured by the imp. Man Xian used the paper doll to create a scene of hell, and Chenong was imprisoned in the hell of tongue-pulling. The illusion in front of him was also the torture of evil spirits who were trying to pull out Chun Ang's tongue with pliers. Yin Jun, who was in the middle, shouted, "The human world's patriarch by Yin is blessed. How dare you be a demon during his birthday? Drag him away and walk away from the 18 levels of hell. But if you come again, you will be sent to reincarnation in the path of the beast." Chenong looked at Lu Guan, who was laughing coldly. An old man by Yin was also laughing, pretending not to see anything. Chenong laughed coldly in his heart. There is no door to fortune or misfortune. Only people bring it upon themselves. Is it not good to be alive? Did old man by Yin think that he has lived too long, so he can't find me? Although the illusion in front of him was extremely tragic, Chenong sat there leisurely, and with a thought, the arcane energy of the heaven river of underworld entered the illusion black fog. The scenery of hell changed, and man Xan was shrunk by 10 times, swapped with his paper doll. Then, the heaven river of underworld triggered a bit of consciousness, falling into the illusion and turning into the underworld general of underworld. It was the will of the underworld general of underworld, formed by the heaven river of underworld. When it saw this, it was furious and shouted, "How dare you? Do you think you will not enter reincarnation?" He raised his sword, and no matter how man Xian begged for mercy, he cut him into 8 pieces on the spot. He glared at the other cultivators in the hall, smiled coldly, cupped his fists to thank Chenong, and sucked man Xian's soul away. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Only 5 lust and a few others felt their expressions change. They knew how powerful this was. Everyone else, including Old Man Whitestone, thought that it was just an illusion. Even though their expressions were unsightly, they only felt like they had lost face. Chenong was the first to reveal himself. He cupped his fists and sighed, "That fellow Taoist came to the underworld with me. Unfortunately, he was discovered by Yin Jun. He couldn't escape in time and was chopped into 8 pieces by the patrolling netherworld generals. What a pity." As soon as he finished speaking, the black fog dispersed, revealing only man Xian's mutilated corpse. A commotion broke out in the hall. Someone stood up and angrily rebuked, "Who are you? How dare you commit murder in Ancestor Whitestone's hall?" The White Crag elder's face turned ashen. He was obviously furious. On the other hand, the Lord of 5 Desires and the other unorthodox disciples looked serious. The White Crag elder suppressed his emotions and shouted, "All right, it's a joyous occasion. Don't disturb my birthday banquet." After he finished speaking, he coldly ignored Chenong, showing off his prestige. How could such an ant-like person attract Chun Ang's attention? Unfortunately, he was doomed. Lu Guan stood up and said, "Everyone, please give my grandfather face and specially come to congratulate him. I have presented many gifts and displayed my best spells. I wonder what kind of spells do you have? Can I offer them to everyone? Please give me face." Chenong thought to himself, "Do you think I'm a monkey for you to see? Who do you think you are? You are not worthy of me giving you face. Do you know that the person who asked me to give you face is already dead?" Lu Guan saw that Lu Guan spoke politely, unlike the Mermaid Palace, who killed everyone in the hall. Lu Guan smiled patiently and said, "It's just a small skill. I don't want to embarrass myself." The White Crag elder, who was sitting on the main seat, had an ugly expression. Lu Guan was also smiling coldly at him. The surrounding lackeys started to clamor, "Brat, don't be so shameless. How dare a mere child offend Master Lu? If you still refuse to kneel and beg for mercy, Ancestor White Crag will definitely kill your entire family. Impudent! You are courting death." Chenong was almost amused. He stood up and looked around. "Since everyone is so enthusiastic, I will not hide my skills. Let me show you my unique spell, the Great Liberation Celestial Light." Lu Guan thought that he had given in and thought, "It's too late to bow down now." He had already regarded Chenong as a dead man. He looked down at Chenong and sneered, "The Great Liberation Celestial Light? How arrogant!" The White Crag elder looked at him lovingly and said to Chenong in a commanding tone, "Tell us about it." The esteemed 5 aphrodisiac looked at the two of them in astonishment. He was rather bewildered. However, Chenong did not seem to mind his insulting tone at all. He smiled and said, "When this great liberation celestial light shines on a person's body, It will give birth to 12 types of heavenly flowers. It will make one sweat, and one will hear the sound of tranquil music. It will cleanse one's body, refine one's immortal bones, and ascend. When he said this, the crowd burst into laughter. Everyone looked at him as if he was a clown. Someone shook his head and laughed. Nonsense! How can there be such a thing? Luguan also asked, Is what you said true? Chenong laughed and said, It's absolutely true. If you don't believe me, let me show you. When he said this, everyone looked at him. Chenong flipped his right palm, and the divine light of magnetism of Een had already shone on Old Man White Crag. The divine light of magnetism rubbed against Old Man White Crag, and Old Man White Crag's soul was destroyed. His corpse turned into ashes, and only a wisp of green smoke remained. At this moment, everyone was stunned. The sound of a wine glass falling to the ground could be clearly heard in the hall. Chenong slowly retracted his right palm and laughed. Everyone, look! The White Crag Elder has become an immortal and ascended. Luguan's face turned green and his lips trembled. The crowd was in an uproar. Someone whispered, Is this great liberation celestial light real? Even the esteemed 5 aphrodisiac and the others looked at Chenong in astonishment. In the entire hall, only Chenong was leisurely and leisurely. He even had the mood to smile at Luguan. When Luguan saw the look in his eyes, he was so frightened that he sat paralyzed on the chair. After a long time, when the White Crag Elder did not appear, he struggled to get up and kneeled at the feet of the esteemed 5 aphrodisiac. He cried, Esteemed one, esteemed one, that murderer tried to kill my grandfather in broad daylight. Esteemed one, you have to uphold justice for me. The esteemed 5 aphrodisiac coldly shook off Luguan's hand and smiled at Chenong. He said, Didn't your grandfather obtain benevolence and become an immortal? What's the use of begging me? Luguan's forehead was full of sweat, and he begged incessantly. The esteemed 5 aphrodisiac became impatient with him. He waved his sleeve and flung Luguan away. Luguan sat paralyzed on the ground. When he saw the indifferent look on Chenong's face, he suddenly shouted, Evil Taoist! Everyone, let's kill that evil Taoist! Chenong sighed. Suddenly, lightning struck down and killed 70% of the guests and young Master Luguan. He laughed and said, The White Crag Elder is in heaven and can't bear to part with this grandson of his. He has summoned everyone up for another feast and begged me to send them on their way. He turned his head and asked the remaining people, What do you think? The remaining people in the hall were trembling. How could they dare talk back? They could only agree with a trembling voice. Chapter 495. After Chenong's killing spree, there were less than 10% of the unorthodox cultivators left in the hall. With the help of Venerable 5 Obsessions, what was supposed to be a birthday banquet was turned into a funeral for the entire Lu clan. The good thing was that the black-robed young man that Chenong had transformed into did not arouse any suspicions. Even if he said that he was from the mystic door, those who witnessed his killing spree would still have some doubts. Chenong glanced at the many people in the hall. He had killed almost all of the people who made a ruckus earlier. Now, who was left here that did not know what was going on? They saw that Chenong was ruthless. Although they were angry, they were even more afraid. The 2 great liberation celestial lights just now were indeed ruthless. The famous Old Man White Crag did not even leave a corpse behind. These people were not as capable as Old Man White Crag, so they were very obedient. Seeing this, Chenong shouted, Is there anyone else who is envious of your celestial cultivation? I will not hesitate to fulfill your wish. Chenong repeated this twice, but no one dared to reply. Most of the remaining people covered their faces and left. Only a dim light could be seen flying away. Chenong turned his gaze to the 3 people in the hall who had not moved yet. He heard Venerable 5 Obsessions say, My friend's great vital divine light is very marvelous and admirable. How should I address you? Chenong said plainly, My Taoist name is River Styx. Venerable 5 Obsessions could hear the faint murderous intent in his words. The sharpness in it made his heart turn cold. He could not help but think, what a murderous talent. This person is really cruel and merciless. I am afraid that he would even dare to kill me if there is a disagreement. That fellow Qin gang ruined my plans. Now that Gu Hao Zi's cultivation has improved, but he is trapped by the seal. If I want Master to refine him into a blood deity, I will need the help of fellow demon sect cultivators. This person is so powerful. How can I not make use of him? Then he secretly deduced Chun Ang's background, only to feel that the mysteries of the heavens were obscure, among which there was a copious murderous aura of indiscriminate killing that traversed across. Then he saw two streaks of sword aura. One was Yuan Tu, the other was Avicii. His heart could not help but be in a perilous state. It's actually the orthodox demonic path. This person's orthodoxy was indeed from a blood sea. It was probably an ancient orthodoxy that appeared out of nowhere due to the appearance of the heavenly demon. In this way, this person will definitely enter my family. With that thought, he smiled and said, "So it's fellow Taoist River Styx. I can see that fellow Taoist dermic powers are also from the sea of blood lineage. Today's celebration of Old Man White Crag's birthday is just a pretense. I have invited all of you here because I have something important to discuss. It has to do with the appearance of the Southern Sea heavenly demon a few days ago. Our demonic path has not had a heavenly demon leader for hundreds of years. Now that the senior has taken a step forward, it is a matter of great importance. That is why I'm shamelessly asking for everyone's help. Other than Chinong and Venerable 5 Aphrodisiac, there were still 2 people in the hall who had not left. They were probably the demonic path people invited by Venerable 5 Aphrodisiac. Chun-Ong secretly observed their dermic powers. As expected, they were the best among the rogue immortals, old demons who had lived for many years. One of the naked barbarian women sneered and said, "5 Aphrodisiac, if you have something to say it quickly. The appearance of the heavenly demon has caused everyone to move. If it is just a small matter, don't blame me, Hu Jiao Jiao, for not giving you face." The other man in linen also snorted coldly. His attitude was self-evident. Venerable 5 Aphrodisiac pondered for a while, then slowly said, "Other than my friend River Styx, who was invited by me, there are also Fairy Lady Wan Miao, Su Feinyang, Xuandu's Feather Warrior Lin Yuan, Lianshan Cult Master Deshan Old Man, and others who are not here yet." Fairy Lady Wan Miao also invited a few friends from the Extreme West Cult, a few fellow cultivators who study with her on Mount Wutai, a few juniors from the Western Devil Cult and Southern Devil Cult, and the abandoned disciples of the Heavenly Lust Cult. If they don't come, I can't say it out loud. But my Shifu, Xinyuan the Great, has predicted this. We have to invite all of our fellow cultivators. If there are only a few of us, we will definitely become a thorn in the side of those hypocrites. Chinong could tell that Hu Jiao Jiao was from the Devil Cult, and the man in linen was from another sect. Chun Ang's current corporeal body was the supreme heavenly devil body. What kind of fiend god could escape from his senses? At first glance, he could tell that Hu Jiao Jiao's natal fiend gods were the 6 devils of the world of desire. In this world, the fiend god with such power must be the disciple of the Red Body Cult's master, Jiupan Pa. The Red Body Cult's master was originally a barbarian woman. Later, because she was disappointed in love, she entered the mountain out of jealousy and anger. She met an elder of the Devil Cult who had been in closed-door training for many years. She was taught 3 devil scriptures and was ordered to establish the Red Body Cult. At that time, Jiupanpa became a new force in the cult. Almost no one could defeat her. The Supreme Heavenly Devil Cult's master boasted that the devils she cultivated were either evil souls or the souls of zombies, skeletons, and unorthodox demons. They did not harm mortals. However, after being warned by the Longbrow spiritual master, they cleaned up the cult, and the cult rules became stricter. This Hu Jiao Jiao was probably the abandoned disciple of the Red Body Cult, someone who had left the cult in the past. And that man in hemp clothes should be the disciple of Mount Hua's master Lai Hua. But Mount Hua had too many evil followers, so he did not know who he was. Since the 5 evil Zhan had already invited so many people from the Devil Cult, the general situation was already in place. Therefore, Chenang's usefulness had dropped a lot. Moreover, if the five evil Jean was allowed to take the initiative, it would be easier to lure out his cautious master, Xin Yuan the Great. With this thought in mind, Chenong suddenly said, "Why is the five evil Jean being secretive? Since it has something to do with the heavenly devil, this matter cannot escape from helping that senior escape. If I want to ascend to the Azura demon world, I must obtain that senior's teachings. If you know the whereabouts of senior heavenly devil, I will naturally do my best to help. Why do you need to care about it?" His voice had not yet fallen when Hu Jiao and the old man were shaken. She rushed to the five evil Jean and said, "Five evils, is this true?" Without waiting for the five evil Jean to reply, she muttered to herself, "Yes. Unless this is the case, how can it be called the general situation? Fellow Taoist River Styx, the five evil Jean, I'm afraid you already know that Senior Heavenly Devil is in trouble and wants to use it to fight against the righteous path." The man in hemp clothes also excitedly said, "If we can save that Senior Heavenly Devil, not to mention the benefits of magic treasures and Tao techniques, if we can be accepted as a disciple, we will also have the hope of achieving the Heavenly Devil fruit in the future. For you people from the Devil cult, this is very important. This matter will certainly attract the mystic door and the righteous path to stop it. It will be impossible to succeed unless we invite all the people from the same path." Hu Jiao did not finish listening to his words. She excitedly interrupted, "I agree to this matter. Five evils Jean, among us, I'm afraid only you know the whereabouts of that senior. I will take you as the leader this time, but please tell us the location so that we can study it together." The five evil Jean did not expect Chen Ong and the others to figure out the crux of the problem so quickly. His face turned ugly, and he said, "Hu Jiao, since I am the leader, I should be the one to make the plan. What do you mean by this?" The man in hemp clothes sneered. "Now that the righteous path has not reacted in time, with the combined strength of the four of us, we may be able to save the Senior Heavenly Devil. Won't you ruin our plan by delaying it?" Seeing that the five evil Jean seemed to be persuaded, he went one step further and said, "Don't think that this is an important secret. Every minute that passes, this secret loses some of its value. If the righteous path launches a full-scale attack and takes over the place where that senior is sealed, what is the use of keeping this secret?" The five evil Jean sneered. "How arrogant! Heavenly Devil Gu Hao Zi was sealed by Taoist Red Staff in the past. The restrictive spell is extremely powerful. Even when he achieved the supreme Heavenly Devil body, he could not escape. Who do you think you are? How dare you boast that you can help the senior escape?" Chapter 496. After they turned against five obsessions, the atmosphere became tense. The man in sackcloth wanted to say something, but when he heard Immortal Red Staff of the Great Wilderness, he shut his mouth. Although Immortal Red Staff was not famous, disciples of big sects like him knew that he was one of the earth spirits with the highest cultivation in the universe. It was only because he could not bear to lose his disciples that he could not get the celestial immortal karma rank and ascend to heaven. The skyscraping devil was sealed by such a figure. Even if the skyscraping devil broke out of the seal, he would have to be careful, not to mention an individual immortal like him. Seeing that they did not press him any further, five obsessions flicked his sleeves and said, "We need to work together to solve this problem. We must not fight among ourselves and let the hypocrites of the mystic door laugh at us. Several fellow Taoists have already sent word to me. They're traveling through the night and will arrive in a few days. Let's wait for them first." After that, they parted on bad terms. Forcing five obsessions to tell them where the skyscraping devil was sealed was fruitless. Chenong returned to the attic where he lived a few days ago. The Liu family on the island had all been killed by five obsessions, and most of the servants and maids had left. Only a few clever manservants did not run away with their belongings. Instead, they stayed in Chun Ang's attic to fawn on him. There were still a few days before the other evil men arrived. Chun Ang thought that it was not appropriate to use the magic he had learned, and the magic weapons he refined were all from the righteous path. It would be better to practice a few more diabolism skills to show his identity as a direct disciple of the diabolism river Styx. Besides, his blood river Dharma power was both righteous and demonic. He could switch between the blue sky underworld and the blood sea. It would be a pity if he did not cultivate the identity of a giant of the diabolism. The magic of the diabolism is fierce. I am proficient in many mystic magic arts, but some of them are evil, and I do not know them. As for the other powerful skills, it takes a long time or a coincidence. In this way, only the blood flame, devil light, golden knife, and fiend god can be cultivated in a few days. Thinking of the 2 flying yakshas he killed in the earth lung, he could not help but feel pity. There are good materials for refining fiend god. Even the white bone fire formation, there are skeletons from ancient times which can help me refine fiend god. It is a pity that I did not have this identity at that time. As a righteous man, it is not easy to practice those fiend god magic arts. Under the earth lung of the copper coconut island, there was an ancient disaster. Moreover, there was the magnetic peak, which attracted the dark and bad luck of the earth within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Who knows how many evil spirits from ancient times are hidden here? Zombies and skeletons that have cultivated for many years are good materials for the mystic orthodox sect to refine fiend god magic arts. It is a pity that I did not have this identity at that time. It is not easy for a righteous person to practice those fiend god magic arts. Fortunately, in order to refine a fiend god, he did not need to rely on those vile souls and zombies. The souls of the unorthodox path and demons were also excellent materials. There were 3 living souls on this island now, and there would be more in the future. Chenong did not need that many people for his plan. He could find a few blind and unlucky ones and kill them, and he would be able to gather a few living souls. Based on Chun Ang's current situation, Hu Jiaojiao's soul is evil and full of spiritual energy. She is also a cultivator with a good foundation. There is no better person to use to refine the 7 holy fiend gods. The hemp-clothed man has thick bones and a tough body. He can be used to refine fiend god magic arts. As for the venerable of 5 sects, since he planted the blood sea true water, he can only refine him into a blood god. Chun Ong calculated one by one and suddenly felt his eyes light up. He does not need to worry about the materials for the experiment anymore. The way of creation is not necessarily a magic treasure or a panacea. The fiend god magic arts, which is born from death and reborn from death, is a strange existence between living and dead. It may be more in line with the original meaning of creation. Like the supreme heavenly demon immortal body that Chun Ong is using now, isn't it the merit fruit of creation that he is most proud of in this world? It is also the most enlightening to him. Anyway, the endless karma can be borne by this body, and it will not affect the original body. Why should I worry too much? He silently operated his primordial spirit, and the blood river Dharma power communicated with the boundless blood sea, absorbing the blood sea true water that seeped into the void. At the same time, he activated the nameless hellfire in the supreme heavenly demon body's spiritual consciousness. Although Chun Ang's original self has entered this body, many devil thoughts are still in Gu Hao Zi's spiritual consciousness. However, there is no original self. Under the pressure, he opened his mouth and spat out a devil fire, igniting the blood sea true water. Seeing the blood flame accumulating, 13 blood-colored talismans were born from it and refined by his primordial spirit. This way, the blood flame can absorb the void chi of vitality and communicate with the blood sea to nourish itself. It no longer needs Chun Ang's Dharma power to supplement it, and this spell can be considered as a small success. Chun Ong opened his mouth and swallowed the blood flame, and turned back to the original form of the great Azura, supreme, heavenly demon body. He burrowed into the ground and searched for a few unexploited mineral veins in the archipelago. He refined the blood flame into golden chi, and then carved many restrictions, turning the tens of millions of golden chi in these mineral veins into a golden blade devil fire forbidden spell, and cultivated another spell. With the last bit of time left, he used the earth lung white bone fire stored in the golden ship of creation, and used the blood sea true water to condense the evil spirit and refined it into the white-bone 5 demons. They were like 5 tall, white-bone demons, and their bodies were as hard as Vajra. They had infinite strength and could change at will and were powerful. It belonged to the mystic orthodox sex method, and although it was not as secretive as the formless demons, it was still very powerful. It had its own merits compared to Hu Jiaojiao's 6 desires demons. On this day, when Shanong was cultivating the demons underground, he saw a grayish-white light flying towards him from afar. Under the Blood River Dharma eye, he saw a demon with fire under his feet, rolling over. His face was full of malevolence, and his eyebrows were vertical, and his green eyes were bright. He looked so long that it could stop a child from crying, and his face was full of bad luck. That person was full of malevolence, and with one look, one could tell that he was a person who slaughtered living beings and committed the sin of killing. The resentment of living beings went deep into his soul, and the roots of evil were deeply planted. It was impossible for him to achieve Tao, but he was a good material to refine evil spirits. Instantly, Chun Ang's heart was filled with malevolence, and he quietly hid his sword light. When the demon passed by his head, a blood-red sword light wrapped around it and pierced through his body. His soul hung on the sword light, and he retracted it. The white-bone 5 demon also had to pounce on him and grab his corpse. Not to mention that he had a good quality heterodox demon soul. With malevolence rooted in his soul, there was also a resentment of a violent death, and it could be said to be a top-grade material for the demonic path. Just the tyrannical body, the many evil spirits, blood, and bones in the magical treasure pouch made Chun Ang's trip worthwhile. Not only did he improve the white-bone 5 demon by 1 level, but he also refined a mystic demon to supplement it, and it became even more powerful. Since there were such benefits, Chun Ong hid nearby, and when he saw a heterodox light flying over, he took them by surprise and used his flying sword to ambush them. In 3 days, he killed 4 waves of demons, and the rest were either not guilty of crimes that deserved death, or they still had value, and their luck was not exhausted. Chapter 497. After 3 days, Chun Ong realized that he could no longer do anything. He returned to his room and waited for the Reverend of 5 Desires to invite him. In the afternoon of the same day, a boy came to pay his respects. Chun Ong found him familiar. He seemed to be one of the attendants at the banquet hall a few days ago, but now he had some superficial mana. Chun Ong guessed that it was the corrosive power of the blood god's mana. It was not the right path. Although it was fast and convenient, it was exchanging his life for a moment of supernatural power. Knowing that this was the Reverend of 5 Desires method, Chu Li sighed in his heart. The unorthodox path was indeed not to be regretted even if they died. Chu Li sighed and waited for a long time. The boy became more and more fearful until his legs were trembling. He did not dare to look at Chun Ong directly. "Why are you so afraid of me?" Chun Ong asked in confusion. The boy knelt on the ground and cowed out. "I saw your divine might the day before yesterday. You freed Ancestor Bai Yin and the other celestial masters. I did not dare to look at you." Only now did Chun Ong understand. With a strange expression on his face, he asked him to lead the way and casually placed a panacea into his bosom as a reward. With the help of the Peiyuan panacea, perhaps there was a chance for him to enter the Tao. It could be considered a lucky chance for him. The boy brought Chun Ong directly to the main hall where the birthday banquet was held. Chun Ang's brows twitched as he pondered. This was not an auspicious place. The 5 obscenities Reverend was here to gather the heretical people. This was an ominous sign. It seemed that there would be a bloody calamity today. Chun Ang's divination had always been accurate. For example, the Purple Cloud Palace, the Mermaid King's Hall, and the White Crag Elder's birthday banquet. He said that the omen was not good and that there would be a bloody disaster. Although he was the one who did it, the results were accurate. If I were to tell the fortune of an unorthodox sect, it would definitely work every time. Because no matter who it was, I would tell them that they would face a bloody calamity. Then I would unsheathe my sword and send them to the heavens. I really am an expert in fortune-telling. Everything I say comes true. Chenong thought. At this time, there were already more than a dozen people from the unorthodox Devil Dao in the hall. These people were all arrogant and had all kinds of backgrounds. Some were invited by Lord Five Aphrodisiac, some were invited by Lady Myriad Meow, and some were brought here after hearing the news. None of them were like the leaders of the Alliance, causing the hall to be filled with a foul atmosphere, and the group of evil was in a state of disunity. Chenong's arrival was inconspicuous. Other than the Reverend of Five Desires, Hu Jiao, and the hemp-robe man, only people like Su Feinyang would notice him. He was just a young man with a childish face. As a member of the evil path, it was unknown whether he was born stupid or deliberately wanted to embarrass the Reverend of Five Desires. But he actually dared to do such a dirty thing in the hall. Some evil people shouted, "Reverend of Five Desires, since you invited everyone here, there is no song and dance and no beauties to send them off. What's the point?" Lord of Five Aphrodisiacs was well aware of the nature of these heretical demons. Before he could say anything, Su Feinyang and a few of the righteous heretical disciples were already annoyed and went straight to the back of the hall. Chenong could see through the nature of these demons and thought to himself, "These people are really useless. If the Lord God is counting on them to stir up trouble, then they will be used to train the disciples of the righteous path." At first, I wanted to support a few people from the evil path who are really brave, but now it seems that most of them are not even comparable to the 3 talents and 2 clouds. Chenong suddenly felt a little impatient. After glancing at the evil people in the hall, Chenong went to the back of the hall. He saw Su Feinyang coming up to him with a kind and friendly face. She did not seem to be surprised by Chenong's appearance. She said, "Fellow Taoist, you look like you're a Taoist cultivator. You are different from the common people. May I know your name? Who is your master?" "My name is Su Feinyang, and I am cultivating in Mount Huang's 5 cloud steps." Chenong had already changed his appearance. Even someone like Su Feinyang could not see any connection between him and the mysterious perfected cultivator Chun. She only felt that he had a different temperament and was not as weak as the people outside, so she came up to him to befriend him. Chenong smiled and said, "My Taoist name is River Styx. I'm a wandering cultivator who travels the world. I don't have a fixed residence yet." Although Su Feinyang was at loggerheads with Mount Amei and befriended many evil people because of the vengeance of the Hunyuan Patriarch, she was still a righteous person and did not have any other evil deeds. Otherwise, she would not have befriended so many disciples of the Orthodox sections. She also had the intention to befriend Chenong and did not hesitate to lower herself to befriend him. This suited Chenong's taste, and they had a pleasant conversation. Su Feinyang was a clever person with a wide range of knowledge. She used to be the only concubine of the Hunyuan Patriarch, a grandmaster of the unorthodox sects, so she had high standards. In recent years, she had been focusing on her cultivation in order to seek revenge. She had cultivated the most powerful flying swords left behind by the Hunyuan Patriarch, so her mana and supernatural power had improved tremendously. Chenong's intelligence was not to be mentioned. As the two conversed, they were both shocked by each other's abilities. Chenong did not hide his knowledge, which allowed Su Feinyang to faintly sense that his cultivation base was extraordinary. Her tone was even more enthusiastic. She only mentioned the arrogance and tyranny of the people of Mount Amei from time to time, and talked about all kinds of bullying of the unorthodox sects and wandering cultivators. Her words were vague, but when she saw that Chenong was not interested, she did not make it too explicit. She gently put down the topic and looked for another topic. Suddenly, a commotion was heard in front of them. Chenong could not help but divert his attention to look over. He heard someone scolding, "What's that in your pocket? Take it out and let me see." He then heard the boy who went to invite him say, "There's nothing else. It's just a spiritual pill that was bestowed by a senior." The voice asked again, "Do you also have a spiritual pill?" Su Feinyang could not help but frown and said, "To think that he wouldn't even let go of the reward bestowed by the hall servant. Who would be so uncouth?" Chenong apologized to her and stood up to leave. He saw a burly, dark-skinned man at the front of the hall clutching the boy's neck, trying to break the item in his hand. The boy was also unyielding and held on tightly. If it were not for the spiritual pill that had endless magical effects and could not be harmed by ordinary items, the boy would have crushed it. When he saw Chun-Ong coming out from the back of the hall, the boy's eyes lit up and he struggled with all his might. This farce had angered the revered one of 5 obsessions. He shouted, "Revered one of Tiger, you are also a great wandering immortal and a former disciple of the heavenly lewd cult. Why are you bickering with this junior?" The dark-skinned man, revered one of Tiger, scolded, "Revered one of 5 obsessions, if it were not for you, I would have killed him long ago. He is just a boy. How could he have this spiritual pill? He must have stolen it from me. Your subordinates are not clean, so why are you asking me?" As he spoke, he loosened his grip a little, allowing the boy to catch his breath. He hoarsely said, "I did not." In his rage, revered one of Tiger increased the strength in his grip. His eyes flashed fiercely and he wanted to squeeze the boy to death. He shouted, "Little bastard, you have no right to speak here." Chapter 498. Supreme Tiger was an abandoned disciple of the Heaven Lust cult. Ever since the cult leader was punished by the heavens and died, most of his disciples were killed. There were a few who were lucky enough to escape, but they did not change their evil ways. They just did not do evil in Middle-earth and came to the sea to act like a lord. Because of the vastness of the world, there was no one to teach them a lesson, which made them even more arrogant. It was also because the tribulation had arrived that the Tiger Power Sovereign and the others decided to take action. They came to stir up the heavenly demon's birth and provoke Chun-Ong. Now that his senior and junior brothers were here, the esteemed 5 obscenities did not dare to provoke them. Otherwise, if they were on the same side, he did not know what they would do. The Honorable Tiger of Strength also used his spiritual consciousness to scan the boy and touch the spirit pill. He felt some benefits. In his Dharma eyes, the spirit pill was stimulated by the spiritual vigor and turned into 5 colors. It had the aura of dragons and tigers. It was the top-grade spirit pill that cultivators desired. This kind of treasure was actually in the bosom of an attendant boy. How could Venerable Tiger not be jealous? Seeing that his fellow disciples who had abandoned him were all here, how could he care about anything else? He immediately wanted to forcefully snatch it away. He truly didn't even care about face. Even though Chun-Ong sent the 5-ine white-bone demon to snatch the boy away from his hands and even promised to take responsibility for the matter, Supreme Tiger saw that he did not even have the Tao fruit of an itinerant immortal and looked down on him. A disdainful smile appeared on his face, and he sneered. "Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you meddle in my business? Kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times. Then I will mercifully send you to reincarnation. If you dare to say anything, the Shen-In Beast Gathering flag will be waiting for you." Chun-Ong smiled and did not want to talk anymore. Supreme 5 obscenities said angrily, "Supreme Tiger, give me some face. Let's forget about today's matter." Supreme Tiger laughed and grinned. "5 obscenities, it is not that I do not want to give you face. These 2 thieves stole my medicinal pills, yet you still want to protect them. That's going against us, brothers." Supreme 5 obscenities only knew that this guy was rough, but he did not know that he had a cunning side. As he shouted, he secretly sent a message to his senior and junior brothers. "Senior brothers, don't say that I, Supreme Tiger, do not give you all benefits." Most of what this brat said is true. The pills that he gave to a servant boy are already so extravagant. Who knows how much wealth he has himself? If we brothers work together to get rid of him, all the benefits will be split into 5, and will King split it evenly. Can we do this? His senior and junior brothers in the heavenly lewd cult were not good people, so after some bargaining, they came to an agreement. As a result, a skinny man who was as thin as a bamboo pole and whose bones could faintly be seen chuckled and stood in front of Venerable 5 Lasciviousness, saying, "Venerable 5 Lasciviousness, it's not that we want to make you lose face, but with us fellow disciples here, we can't let you bully our people. I think my junior brother is right." He looked at Chun-Ong and said with a sinister smile, "Since this little brother has a clear conscience, why don't you let me search you? He is just a mortal who has yet to become an immortal. How much wealth can he have? Seal his magic power, and let me search his dantian and treasure pouch. If my junior brother wrongly accused a good person, then he will apologize to you. What do you think?" Supreme Five Obscenities was so angry that his face turned red. He did not have any friendship with Chenong, but if he let Supreme Skinny treat his guest like this, what face would he have left? He would no longer be the Alliance Master. But if he could think of this, so could the others. Aside from Lady Myriad Meow and a few others, the other heretical disciples were not arrogant people. In order to control these people, the Five Obscenities Venerable didn't invite the two seniors who could control the situation. As a result, there were some people who didn't want to be inferior to them and shouted, "The Tiger Force Venerable and the Thin Bone Venerable are right. If that kid is magnanimous, with so many of us here, he won't be wrongly accused. If he dares to shirk responsibility, he must have a guilty conscience. Just let the Tiger Sovereign take care of him." Venerable Five Desires was only one person, so how could he suppress so many people who harbored evil intentions? Moreover, his mind was filled with resentment. He knew that Chenong couldn't be underestimated, and he wanted him to embarrass the Venerable Tiger. Therefore, he looked at the noisy people with resentment, symbolically obstructed them a few times, and then retreated. Only Chenong was left facing the abandoned disciples of the Heaven Lewd cult. Only Lady Myriad Meow, Su Feinyang, who wanted to befriend Chenong, stood beside him and comforted the crowd. However, Supreme Tiger laughed loudly and suddenly slapped Chenong's face. He had used 70 to 80% of his strength in this slap. With his strong body, he wanted to destroy most of Chenong's physical body and destroy the future of this kid who seemed to have a good aptitude, so that he wouldn't come to seek revenge in the future. He had an even more ruthless plan in his mind. After restraining Chenong, he would shatter his dantian and chi si with his palm. Then, he would secretly plant the black silk in his soul, preventing him from attaining Tao even if he had a great fortune. Chenong just smiled coldly, and a blood-red Lianhua appeared in the void, holding Supreme Tiger's palm. Behind his head, two blood-red sword rays appeared. He glanced at the crowd and said coldly, "Is it not good to be alive? Why do you want to die?" Beside him, Su Feinyang's expression changed slightly. She quickly stopped him and said, "Fellow Taoist River Styx, please bear with it for now and seek revenge in the future." She was so anxious that she could not even maintain her smooth and slick demeanor. She would rather offend the Honorable Tiger Force and the others in order to preserve her friendship with Chenong. It could be seen that she thought highly of Mingyi, the rising star of the younger generation, and did not want him to suffer a calamity. She did not want him to lose some of his confidence to face May. "Do you think this bunch of useless people are worthy of me bearing with them?" "For her sake," Chenong replied. The two blood-red sword rays behind his head had already moved. The moment the sword rays flashed, there was a myriad of phenomena. With the identity of River Styx, it was not convenient for him to use his previous swordsmanship. He could only use the murderous aura from the Blood Sea, in line with the Tao of Heaven, to draw a sword that was traceless like an antelope's horn. However, it was filled with murderous intent, completely different from the carefree and unrestrained Milky Way from before. At first, Supreme Tiger could still laugh, but when the sword ray flew across the sky like a river of blood, carrying a tinge of indifference and ruthlessness, as if the Tao of Heaven was going to end all things and the end of everything in the world was death, he was so terrified that he couldn't speak. Before the sword ray could break through the dark cloud formed by the mystical Beast banner, Supreme Tiger had already sensed a murderous tribulation entangling his vital spirit. The thick dark cloud could not stop the weak sword ray. It was twisted by the blood-red sword ray and fell to the ground together with Supreme Tiger's 6 Sons vulture, turning into a small gray banner. Chapter 499. Su Feinyang's expression changed drastically. She cast a transcendent artifact to conceal herself and quietly pulled on Chenong's sleeve, saying, "Fellow Taoist River Styx, why are you so reckless? This Supreme Tiger Vigor is not alone. He has a few senior and junior brothers, all of whom are powerful and violent. It's fine if you humiliate him, but now that you've killed him, How can they not hold a grudge against you? If you run away with me now, they might not be able to stop you in time in their panic, and I won't be able to save you even if it's too late." Chunong smiled. They're just a bunch of stray dogs. Even when Celestial Obscenity Cult Master was around, they were not valued at all. So how can they be worthy of my sword? Su Feinyang wanted to persuade him again, but Lord Skinny had already regained his senses and shouted, "Little brat, how dare you!" He lifted the Supreme Tiger Vigor's corpse and sneered, "I'm going to use the demon fire to refine your soul for 300 years and let you die a horrible death." With a shrill howl, he turned into a demonic shadow and pounced forward, but he was trapped by the 5 white bone god summoned by Chunong. The 5 white skeletons trapped a black shadow, and Lord Skinny was about to cast a powerful spell from the Mysticine scripture. But how could he know how powerful the spell cultivated by Chun Ang's blood river was? He was only concerned about the 5 avatar heavenly demons, and was ambushed by the faceless heavenly demon. His body stiffened, and one of his bones was snatched away by the white bone god, and all his blood essence was consumed. Chunong didn't even look at this person, and instead, he went straight to the others in the hall and said with a smile, "You are all trash. What use do I have for you? Why don't you pledge your allegiance to me and become materials for me to refine into a god? That way, your bodies of flesh and blood won't be in vain, and you won't bring shame to the demonic path." Such arrogant words caused Lord 5 Aphrodisiac's face to fall. Many of the cultivators in the hall were enraged and were about to attack. All of them circulated their magic and took out all sorts of magic treasures. They wanted to teach Chunong a lesson. Chunong rubbed his hands together, and blood flames sprayed out, burning everything in sight. A nameless karmic fire burned through the 9 layers of void, turning the great hall into a sea of fire. The others tried their best to save themselves, but Chunong only stepped on the red lotus-like blood flames. 2 beams of sword light twined around him, killing everyone in sight. His sword techniques were filled with killing intent, and no one could stop him. In just 2 jumps, the ground was already littered with corpses. Venerable One of 5 Obsessions was afraid that he would really kill everyone, so he quickly stood up and stopped him. "Fellow Taoist River Styx, many of these people have extraordinary backgrounds. You must not kill them indiscriminately, or else you will be doomed in the future due to the entanglement of karma." Chunong laughed loudly and said, "It's just karma. What's there to worry about? I'm not asking for peace in this world. I'm asking for the great world to be filled with weapons and murderous tribulations. If I kill everyone in this world, I will be able to seize the position of the Azura Demon cult's leader. Why not be happy? Every person I kill is a tribulation, and every tribulation is a cultivation. You fear tribulations like a tiger, but I love these murderous tribulations the most. Help me achieve the Tao." As soon as he finished speaking, he laughed coldly. Venerable One of 5 Obsessions felt an indescribable coldness in his heart, and he suddenly took out his protective magic treasure. However, he was caught off guard by a sword behind him, and it cut him in half at the waist. His corporeal body turned into bloodlight, and just as the 2 pieces of bloodlight were about to merge back together, a fierce killing intent suddenly erupted. This sword chi was like his nemesis, and even his blood god son body couldn't heal it. In fear, Venerable One of 5 Obsessions turned into 2 beams of bloodlight, and he didn't dare to turn back to stop Chunong. He could faintly hear a voice in the air. "He's crazy. He's a madman." River Styx was excited from killing, and he released his primordial spirit from his corporeal body. It was an 800 miles long blood river, and it pounced on the sword lights. The 2 blood-red sword lights suddenly grew 100 times larger, and their tails were 800 feet long. As they moved, the protective magic treasures of those people were cut in half by the sword lights. No matter how strong their corporeal bodies were, or even their primordial spirit and spirit, as long as they were grazed by the sword lights, they would immediately lose their lives. At first, some of the demons and heretics on the scene said, "River Styx, are you crazy? I'm a true disciple of the West Pole cult. Can you afford to offend me?" Su Feinyang's expression changed drastically, and she said to Chenong, "The West Pole cult has 6 supreme elders, and their cultivation is at the celestial realm. They're a great cult from overseas. You must not." Before she could finish her sentence, the disciple who claimed to be from the West Pole cult fell to the ground, and he had already turned into a corpse. Then there were the Western Devil cult, Southern Devil cult, Lianshan cult, and a disciple from Mount Wutai in the past. They were all killed by Chun Ang's sword and burned to death. Only then did they realize that this River Styx was a killing talent that had not been seen for thousands of years, and he was a terrifying person who killed without batting an eyelid. When the remaining people saw how ruthless he was, someone begged for mercy. "Fellow Taoist, every wrong has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. We don't want to make things difficult for you, but please spare our lives." Before he could finish his words, another blood-red sword light brushed past his chest, slicing his stomach open, and he died. Only then did everyone understand that this young man who claimed to be River Styx really wanted to kill everyone. Immediately, someone stepped forward and joined forces with many loose immortals who could protect themselves from the karmic fire of the Red Lotus. They looked out and helped each other, vaguely forming a battle formation. One of the loose immortals in the lead shouted, "Fellow Taoists, let's get rid of this madman together." They unleashed their best treasures at the same time. The abandoned disciple of heaven lasciviousness took out the mystical beast gathering formation. Countless ferocious beasts and fierce spirits pounced out from the formation, trying to trap Chun Ong. Chun Ong just laughed and said, "The path of immortality is still alive, and the great path is easy to kill. All living things end with death. It can be seen that this heaven and earth cannot allow you to live for so long. All of you are going against the heavens, stealing the Tao to live, and going against the laws of heaven. Your sins are unforgivable. All of you die." He only made the sword light even more ferocious. The 2 sword lights merged with his primordial divinity and turned into a river of blood that was 800 miles long. Hu Jiao Jiao cried out in terror, "Blood River Formation." The mystical beast gathering formation, formed by dozens of people, was suppressed by the river of blood. The dozens of heterodox cultivators couldn't even make a sound before they were swallowed by the river of blood. 2 inscriptions could be vaguely seen in the 2 sword lights. One was UN2, and the other was Avicii. They were like 2 lines of blood swimming in the river of blood, killing the people who were suppressed inside one by one. In just a few rounds, more than 10 people were killed, and the remaining people were scared out of their wits. When UN2's sword reached a woman, he heard her shout, "Fellow Taoist River Styx, fellow Taoist River Styx, we'll definitely meet again. Please spare my life. I'm willing to swear a great oath to be your servant." Chenong saw that it was Hu Jiao Jiao, the abandoned disciple of Red Body Cult. He smiled and said, "If you can take a sword from me, I might be able to use you." However, with a flash of the sword light, the beauty's head fell to the ground. Chenong then shook his head and sighed, "I wanted to spare you, but you're useless." The man in hemp clothes was disheartened and didn't want to beg for mercy anymore. He was also killed by Avicii's sword light. Chenong just frowned. "You don't even have the courage to fight. You deserve to die." He then said, "The Blood River Formation is so ferocious. If all of you die in it, you'll definitely turn into living creatures in the Blood River. You'll be doomed eternally, and you won't even have the chance to reincarnate and cultivate again. Why aren't you fighting back?" As expected, a few more people pounced at Chunong angrily. However, they were killed by the flying sword midway. They were still cursing before they died. Chunong then nodded and said, "Only then will the soul be majestic and more useful." Chapter 500. In this unorthodox sect meeting, Chun-Ong burned countless people to death with a single fire. Countless vengeful souls were left under the sword ray, and countless more were suppressed by the Blood River Formation. When he first arrived, the hall was filled with distinguished guests, but after being killed by him, only a few people were left. No one knew how many had died. He was really decisive in killing and merciless with his sword. The people present were either highly skilled and had not died in the hands of Chenong, or like Su Feinyang, their fate had not run out. When they looked at Chenong, there was no longer a trace of contempt in their eyes. It was as if they were looking at an ancient, ferocious beast. However, Chenong looked around at the dead people around him and could not help but sigh. I knew this place was bad, but the Reverend of 5 Obsessions set the meeting in this hall. The last time when Old Man Bai Yin held a birthday banquet, the entire place was in chaos. Countless distinguished guests died in this hall, leaving only the Reverend of 5 Obsessions, the abandoned disciple of Red Body Cult, Hu Jiaojiao, and Mount Hua Sex Mai Yi. Today, the 4 of us have met with another bad omen. Even the 2 Taoist friends who survived last time are also in trouble. When Su Feinyang and the others heard this, they could not help but curse in their hearts. Isn't it you who killed them? But after such a huge change, no one dared to say anything. They could only curse in secret. It was Su Feinyang who was smooth in dealing with people. She smiled and said, "So, there is such a change, but I wonder what this old man Bai Yin is facing?" Chenong sneered and said, "When I first entered the hall, I heard that there were guests from Black Sand Island. I thought that the old man Bai Yin's birthday banquet was not a good omen and feared that there would be a bloody disaster. Sure enough, he was facing his doom and was blinded by lard. He actually used me as a trick and forced me to perform a spell for them to see. I only know how to kill people. How would I know anything about auspicious spells? Seeing that they were so kind to me, I sent them one by one to the west to fulfill their wishes." Even if Su Feinyang had a clever mind, she couldn't laugh anymore. She smiled awkwardly and roared in her heart, "You're the one who did it." The others looked at each other and confirmed that there was no guilt or regret in Chenang's tone. His heart trembled as he said, "He's really a killing talent that hasn't been seen in 1,000 years. From what he said, I'm afraid he doesn't have the slightest bit of regret in his heart. I'm afraid that the lives of many people here are just like tiles and bricks in his eyes, worthless and worthless. If I go against Mount Amei, I can rely on this person's character. I've seen many evil sects and devil cultivators. They could be considered as people who kill people like flies, but those they kill are only mortals. Who would kill people like this? How many cultivators were there in the world? If he were to continue killing like this, the 4 seas would be emptied out." From his words, it sounded like he wasn't satisfied. A person like this is really hard to grasp. I wonder if it's the right decision to ask him to go against Mount Amei? Seeing that Chun Ong released many corpses from the Blood River Formation, he sighed and said, "A few days ago, when I became friends with the other Taoists, I could see that Hu Jiaojiao's soul is majestic. The Taoist in the hemp robe has a strong body and is a good material for refining gods and devils. And the blood of the Reverend of 5 Desires is the best. It's a pity that I didn't see him." What he meant was that he still wanted the Reverend of 5 Desires to be here and let him collect his blood. Everyone present felt as if there was a blade on their backs. They were all people with good karmic luck, and they could faintly sense that there would be a great calamity if they left. That was why they restrained themselves and didn't move. If they moved, they would most likely become the material of another fiend god. Chun Ong used his mana to pick up many corpses from the ruins of the hall and threw them into the Blood River Formation. One could vaguely see blood clouds gathering and the blood river churning. One of the corpses fell and was instantly sucked dry by the true water of blood to be refined into a strange blood deity. It was just that the blood deity was not as ferocious as the original, but it was more secretive. It was a strange creature that lived on the Blood River. The rest of the corpses were corroded by the Blood River and turned into flying zombies. They soaked in the Blood River to increase their grade. These were all materials for refining gods and devils. There were also the evil souls of the heterodox. They roared and rolled in the Blood River. Their original consciousness had already dissipated, leaving only a pure, demonic consciousness. They were cunning and ruthless. They were the forbidden Yin devils. Among them, Hu Jiaojiao, Supreme Tiger, Supreme Thin Bone, and the other evildoers of the Heaven Lust cult had their souls infused with evil energy. They were the toughest and most compatible with the demonic consciousness of the Yin devils. They were the best materials for refining gods and devils. Chenong had already picked out 7 of them and soaked them in the Blood River to cultivate them. He was preparing to refine a type of superior god and devil called the Seven Saints of the Sky. Their mystic treasures and evil items, such as the Dark Beast banners, the 99 spirit swords, and their natal gods and devils were also soaked in the blood river to disintegrate the remnant souls they had harmed. The impurities and evil energy were cleansed by the blood river and used as materials to refine gods and devils. Another bit of his natal true spirit settled at the bottom of the blood river. Nourished by the blue sky yellow springs formed by the true water of the blood river, it slowly grew stronger. Every bit of his natal true spirit was incomplete. Borrowing a bit of the profound mysteries of the blood river, he opened a door and went into reincarnation. The blood river formation could also refine the blue sky underworld and make it even purer. Thinking about it carefully, using these heretical people as materials to refine gods and devils would definitely be more useful than their own bodies. Not only would they be able to command them like their own arms, they would never betray them. Moreover, their transcendence energy would be more than 10 times stronger than their own heterogeneous transcendence energy. This made Chenong look at Su Feinyang with a hint of eagerness. Of course, Su Feinyang did not think that this fellow Taoist River Styx was someone who was obsessed with color. If that was the case, then his gaze was worth discussing. Su Feinyang felt a chill down her spine. She forced a smile and said, "Such a change is truly regrettable. Fellow Taoist River Styx, is there anything else you want us to do?" If there's nothing else, Feinyang should take her leave. Su Feinyang's words struck a chord in the hearts of the others. They recalled that the fire in their pill cauldrons had not been extinguished, that they had dozed off while watching their mounts and let them run away, that the cauldron of pills was still on fire, and that a fellow Taoist had invited them to a banquet, so it was not appropriate for them to continue bothering them. Chenong urged them to stay with great hospitality. The birth of the extraterrestrial devil is a major event for us Taoists. River Styx is truly grateful that so many Taoists have come all the way here. Now that the major event has not even begun, it is truly a pity that so many Taoists have already sacrificed themselves for it. Fortunately, they are all useless people who could not withstand a single blow. It's fine if they die. The remaining Taoists are the pillars of our great cause, so you must not decline. With Su Feinyang as the leader, the Taoists all complained, "My mount has gone to the mortal world to eat people." The pill cauldron toppled and burned a mountain. The gold pill on a cauldron is a matter of life and death. The one who invited me to the banquet is the green-robed patriarch. If I don't go, he will eat my heart. Such an important matter cannot be delayed. Please forgive me, fellow Taoist River Styx. Chenong sighed. If that's the case, it's not appropriate for me to stay any longer. Chapter 501. Hearing the words bloody calamity, the few people who survived felt their limbs go weak. How could they dare to move again? Cultivators would never forget, but wouldn't remember the last 2 times Chun Ong predicted a bloody calamity and what happened to those people. Dozens of breaths later, no one dared to move their feet and stood there in a daze. Heavenly sound novel, to only Su Feinyang was brave enough to ask, "Fellow Taoist, do you need us to stay? If there's anything we can help with, we will not hesitate to help." Chenong sighed. Many of our fellow Taoists here have met with misfortune. Now that there are only a few of us, how can we fight against the righteous path? I'll have to ask fellow Taoists to find some capable helpers, some useful fellow Taoists to help us. However, this sea region is vast, so it's inconvenient for us to communicate. Fortunately, I have the Blood River Soul tracking technique here, which is the most convenient and can sense us from tens of thousands of miles away. Please accept it, fellow Taoists. Behind him, several blood shadows flew out from the Blood River formation and entered the dantian of the people. The others were afraid of his ruthlessness and didn't dare to stop him. They only wanted to find someone to break his spell after they escaped, but they didn't dare to turn against him face to face. After all, the latter still had a chance of survival, but the former had dozens of seniors as proof, so it was a path of no return. The blood talismans formed by the blood sea true water entered the dantian of the few people and melted into their blood and chi, disappearing without a trace. This made these people even more fearful. They weren't afraid of its complicated and hard to break, but it was hidden and hard to find, secretly destroying their foundation. Seeing that they had submitted, Chun-Ong smiled and waved the black banner, saying, "This is much more convenient. Fellow Taoists, please return as soon as possible. I'll first set up a large formation on the eye of the sea, and the blood river will be eye-catching for 800 miles. Of course, if fellow Taoists don't return after a long time and get lost, I'll wave this banner to guide your souls. This is also one of the benefits of the blood talismans. It's extremely convenient." As the black banner shook, the few people felt dizzy and their souls were about to leave their bodies. Their expressions changed drastically, knowing that Chun-Ong had planted a powerful technique on them. However, they didn't know that the blood talismans were the seed talismans of the blood god, planted by Chun-Ong and secretly corroded their primordial spirits. As time passed, their original selves would be erased, and they would become one of Chun-Ang's blood god avatars. Other than Su Feinyang, who Chun-Ong wanted to use, the others would just die a little slower. After all, they would have to face a bloody disaster sooner or later. Putting aside the fact that these heretical people had gone their separate ways, Chun-Ong waited for them to leave before refining the souls of the many heretical beings that had died tragically, as well as the bodies of the cultivators. He used the orthodox Azura magic to refine countless gods and demons. Among them, there were 59 manifestation gods and demons, 36 formless gods and demons, 24 refined zombies, and countless demons and evil spirits. He also collected many evil spirits and devils and dismantled the black silk banner of the mystical beast gathering banner. He used the true water of the blood sea to purify it and understood a kind of soul-weaving technique which could use the 7 emotions and 6 desires of the soul, as well as the various distracting thoughts and devil thoughts to refine a type of blood-soul thread. The souls that were harmed by the demons were purified by Chun-Ong with the yellow springs, and these were the leftovers, so he didn't lack any. However, he wanted to refine the 9 heavens, 10 earths shape and formless celestial demon drawing. Other than the 108 formless celestial demons, he still needed 3,000 blood-soul threads to refine the drawing. This was a huge amount. If it were mortal materials, he would have to collect countless evil spirits, and not even one thread out of 100 people. Fortunately, Chun-Ong had the yellow springs to purify the countless distracting thoughts in the soul, leaving only a bit of the true spirit for reincarnation, so the efficiency was the highest. If it were the souls of cultivators, he only lacked 5 souls of rogue immortals. The more Chun-Ong thought about it, the more he regretted letting the Lord of 5 Desires escape. Although his flesh was rotting in the bowl, if he kept half of the Lord of 5 Desires' soul, he wouldn't die. He could even make the old monster Xianyuan the Great bleed to replenish his soul, and he could earn more. The formless celestial demon drawing has 108 heretic gods and demons. Among them, there should be 36 formless celestial demons, including the 7 saints of heaven confusion, the 7 emotions and 6 desires celestial demons, the 9 children ghost mother celestial demons, the burning heaven raging sky demon, and a total of 18 other types. Although the level of attainment is still low, the drawing is complete. However, there are only 59 out of the 72 formless celestial demons. The main reason is that the red lotus karmic fire burned too fiercely, and many of the heretic cultivators' corpses were destroyed. Fortunately, the living souls are still here, so the loss is not serious. In the future, remember, when killing people, you need to use the blood river formation. The efficiency of collecting souls and refining corpses is high. Previously in the Great Hall, I killed many third-rate heretic cultivators. Although the living souls were collected, the corpses were wasted and destroyed. That's why the harder to refine, formless celestial demons were gathered first. Although we of the path of diabolism do things recklessly, we also need to be frugal. After killing people, the corpses, living souls, blood essence, and magic must be used separately. It's the same as learning how to be meticulous when collecting necromancy magic materials. Chenong carefully recorded them down. On a blood jade that was condensed from a drop of blood sea true water, he imprinted his insights and insights. Then, he conveniently recorded hundreds of magic spells that were used to process raw materials such as souls and zombies. After these basic materials were refined by Blood River, they would become the raw materials for refining gods and demons. The diagram of the formless celestial demons of the 9 heavens and 10 earths was a Taoist technique for refining gods and demons of the mystic Orthodox sect. It was cleverly modified by Chenong, adding a different kind of ingenuity. The path of diabolism actually allowed him to comprehend the method of combining several kinds of gods and demons together to form a large formation, or to combine into an even more ferocious god and demon. This was the true meaning of the formless celestial demons. As for the 9 heavens and 10 earths, it was the 19 formations that Chenong comprehended, forming the 9 heavens realm and the 10 levels of hell. Together with the 108 formless celestial demons, it had an even more unfathomable power. Chenong had already comprehended that when the path of creation of celestial demons was cultivated to the peak, he could create a kind of living soul out of thin air. This living soul was born with a demonic nature, just like Azura, a natural demon. The only difference was the type and the natural magic they were born with, but they were also destined to be the natural enemy of Taoist cultivators. The formless celestial demons have yet to be formed. I only lack the 13 corpses of Taoist cultivators with a foundation and a number of Master level living souls. I originally wanted to wait for the few blood gods to hatch. By then, they should already be in their own cave abodes. Then, I would manipulate them to invite the nearby Taoist cultivators and use the blood gods to kill them all. But now that the South Sea is about to set up the formation, where would I have the time to wait for it? I wonder if there are enough Taoist aristocratic families on the nearby islands? As Chenong thought about it, he pinched his fingers and calculated that the number of Master cultivators on the nearby islands was enough. It was just that he had killed some at Old Man White Crag's birthday banquet previously, and some fled in fear. Although the remaining ones were also evil, there was still a chance of survival. If it was the people of the righteous path, they would still have some reservations, but Chenong had the body of a sky demon. Why would he care so much? He said, "According to my calculations, there should be a bloody calamity here." The heavens immediately responded and killed all those people, becoming Chenong's calamity. Chapter 502. Chenong rolled up the celestial demon painting, turned into a ray of light, and flew to the sea of the nearby islands. His killing spree on White Rock Island had alarmed many cultivator clans in the nearby islands. The living souls that Chenong wanted needed to be at the level of soul. Now that the wandering cultivators on the islands were all hiding like turtles, it was quite troublesome for Chenong to find them one by one. Heavenly Novel 2 immediately, evil thoughts rose in his heart. He decided to go all out and catch them all in one go. He thought to himself, instead of troubling me to find them, why don't I trick them into coming to me themselves? It's been a long time since I've been an old grandpa delivering treasures to someone's doorstep. I guess they're not out of practice yet. Why don't I be kind and leave them a treasure trove so that their whole family can come and find it, and it'll be convenient for me to wipe them out. Secondly, I can screen those who are not fated to die and give them a chance to live. If they don't repent, they deserve to die. When Chenong had calculated to this point, he found a desolate reef and unfolded the 9 heavens and 9 earths form and formless celestial demon painting. A magnificent scene of the celestial palace appeared, and he threw it into the sea. It was like a celestial mansion in the sea. He opened up another 3 passages. He held a jade key of a celestial mansion that was transformed by a demon and threw out a formless celestial demon. It shook its body and turned into an old man who was on the verge of death. Then, it flew shakily towards a big island nearby. He manipulated the demon god and pretended to be fleeing for his life. Although the movement of the light wasn't huge, it was still conspicuous. He flew into the air and turned around to land on the beach. He pretended to be on the verge of death as he adjusted his breathing. As expected, the island was filled with the eyes and ears of the cultivator clans. Soon, a fisherman brought 2 young men to the island. When Chunong saw them, he pretended to struggle and said, "Fellow Taoist, please save my life and give me a life-saving spirit pill. Gu Hongzi will reward you handsomely." The 2 young men had red lips and white teeth. They were the disciples of the Lu clan. The one in front and the one behind him looked at each other and suddenly went up to greet them enthusiastically. "No matter what, we are celestial cultivators. It's only right for us to help each other." As he was about to take out the pill, the other person pretended to stop him. "This person is of unknown origin. How dare you save him?" Chunong saw that the 2 of them were putting on an act, but the other person pretended to hold him back. "This person's background is unknown. How dare you save him?" He snickered in his heart. One is the good guy, and the other is the good guy. Both of them are full of schemes without a teacher. Do they think I'm a country bumpkin who came out of the deep mountains and forests and cultivated to the point that my brain is only left with a one-track mind? Do you think I'm a country bumpkin and a country bumpkin? As expected, the good guy and the bad guy quarreled. Their words were full of concern for the Gu Hongzi that Chunong placed his hopes on, and they wanted to see who was better at acting. Chunong played a country bumpkin rogue cultivator who was secretly moved and a little wary. Finding the right time, Chunong interrupted the quarrel. "I'm not a bad guy. I'm a rogue cultivator invited by the White Crag Elder for his birthday banquet. Because of the birth of an immortal residence near White Crag Island, the jade key to open the door fell into the hands of the White Crag Elder's grandson, Lu Guan. Many guests fought for it, and countless people died. A heterodox master sealed the entire hall with a magic weapon, killing countless people. I only managed to escape by relying on a magic weapon." The tragedy on White Crag Island had long been known by everyone nearby, but the only person who witnessed Chun Ang's murder was the Lord of 5 Obsessions. The rest of the servants only knew that the entire Lu family was dead, but they did not know that there was an insider involved. Later on, the Lord of 5 Obsessions sealed the entire island, so there was no flaw in Chun Ang's story. The eyes of the 2 youths from the Lu family had already lit up when they heard about the birth of the immortal residence. How could they still have time to think about the flaw in the story? The one who played the bad guy said angrily, "Third brother, do you know that this Jade Divine Pill is something that second Aunt lent to you to save your life? If you lose it, I'll see how you're going to explain yourself." The one who played the good guy sighed and insisted on giving this extremely precious pill to Chin Ong to heal his injuries. They pushed and shoved for a while, and when they felt that the time was right, the pale-faced young man shouted, "You Taoist, you said that you would reward me handsomely, but I, Zhuge have given you a life-saving pill. How are you going to repay me?" With a thought from Chinong, the god of appearance, Gu Hongzi put on a troubled expression and said, "It's not that I'm heartless, but that person was too cruel. In order to escape, I had to give up all my treasures and self-destruct one of my best treasures to escape. Now that I'm empty, I really don't have anything to repay the 2 of you." As if he saw the pale-faced youth sneer, he pretended not to see the ugly expression of the one who played the good guy. He gritted his teeth and said, "But I still have a treasure with me. It's the jade key to the immortal residence that many cultivators fought over during the birthday banquet. It's enough to exchange for countless treasures. Many of the heretical demons on the island had been eliminated by a passing expert, so there was no longer any danger. When I recover, I'll bring the 2 of you to explore the immortal residence, and you can choose any treasure you want. However, you must not touch the treasure of the immortal residence, the sea-calming divine metal treasure. This is the treasure that the senior immortals use to suppress the volcano at the bottom of the sea. Although it's the most precious treasure, once it's taken out, everything within 1,000 miles will be turned into a sea of fire. It's a great sin, so you must swear not to covet this treasure." Chunong took out a jade talisman and showed it to the 2 of them as he exhorted repeatedly. The 2 of them looked at each other and smiled. Then they raised their hands and swore an oath, "If I touch this treasure, let my entire family die," and so on and so forth. After the two of them got information from Chunong about the location of the immortal abode, they pretended that they were going to deliver the pills to Gu Hongzi, while one of them secretly raised his flying sword and killed Gu Hongzi while he was distracted by the pills. He happily took the jade key to the immortal mansion and went to report the good news to his elders. Chunong lied to them that the immortal mansion had a total of 3 layers. The outermost layer could be entered by everyone, but only the servants and attendants could come and go. The second layer was more important. There was a special layer of restriction in the herb fields, palaces, and other places. Without the permission of the owner of the immortal residence, those who were above the level of a rogue immortal could not enter. The most important treasures, the place to concoct pills, and the bedroom of the owner of the immortal residence could only be entered by those who were below the level of Een spirit. The two of them were overjoyed when they learned about this. This way, the elders of their families would not have to force them to enter the immortal residence. Their cultivation would be restricted to below the level of Een spirit, and the treasures would not belong to them. Moreover, they thought that they had mastered many secrets of the immortal residence. After they left, Chunong waved his hand, and Gu Hongzi turned into a skeleton and flew into the celestial demon, painting dozens of miles away. When the people on the island found out that Gu Hongzi's body was missing, they would not raise their guard and act cautiously. They would only become more anxious and worried that someone else would snatch the immortal residence before them. With this, Chunong could rest assured and headed straight for the Eye of the South Sea. Chapter 503. Chunong calculated silently. With the help of the blood deity hidden in the bodies of the two youths, the cultivation families in the archipelago would definitely be wiped out. Chunong had also set up many tests in the immortal abode, making sure that the people who came would refine themselves into faceless heavenly demons and provide their souls to increase the power of the celestial demon painting. Heavenly novel too, given the arrogant idiots on the archipelago. The celestial demon painting would wrap their newly refined, faceless, heavenly demon corpses and fly back to Chunong after dozens of days, completely refining the 108 faceless celestial demon paintings. After further calculation, he found that all of them were indeed surrounded by murderous tribulations and were shrouded in bad luck, looking like they were about to die. The appearance of the immortal abode and the treasures left behind by the seniors. This world is really not right. Everyone wants to reap without sowing. Fortunately, I'm here to correct them. I'll let these bumpkins see the dark side of the world and let them know that fortune and misfortune are interdependent and that hard work is the most practical way of life. They'll stop thinking about digging for treasures, robbing graves, and destroying ruins. Do you think my treasures are that easy to dig? Just leave your lives behind and offer your souls and bodies to me so that you could be reborn as soon as possible. There's not enough time this time, so I'll make a short-term plan to deceive a few overseas bumpkins. When I make a big one in the future, I'll trap all the unorthodox mystic door in Middle-earth. Then I'll show off my educational methods. Chunong shifted using the Devil Light escape art. The escape light was really extraordinary, and it only took him a moment to return to the Eye of the South Sea. Now, there were already some righteous people hiding on the nearby deserted islands, and there were also the young man of Mount Tianxian and the 7 friends of Mount Li secretly taking care of them. It seemed peaceful, but it was actually filled with murderous intent. Even in the Eye of the Sea, there were several powerful restrictive spells. There were also some powerful restrictive spells on the 10,000-year-old frigid ice essence sealed by Chunong himself. When the celestial child with the red staff returned to replenish the restrictive spells, he pretended not to know. This was because Chunong's hidden tricks were a level higher. Whether it was his true body in the frigid ice essence or the 9-turn yellow river formation hidden in the Eye of the Sea, he didn't need to worry about their tricks. However, his main target was not these people. Otherwise, he could easily make them suffer a great loss. Seeing that Chunong was covered in blood, one could tell that he was not a good person. He did not know what the connoisseurs of the Mystic Door and the mighty people from overseas were planning, so they did not act rashly. However, there were some rogue cultivators of the unorthodox sects who were hiding in the shadows. They admired the righteous path and usually stood upright. Chunong did not care about them and directly launched the Blood River Formation on the two deserted suburbs. The Great Blood River Formation originated from the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation and was one of the transformations of the true water of the Blood Sea. However, later on, Chunong devoutly comprehended many of the mysteries of Ian Manor's river Styx and established this great formation. Its might was even more formidable than the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation, so he wasn't afraid of being seen through by others. This method was almost equivalent to the true inheritance of the Azura Devil Path. No one would believe that it was the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation. The 800 miles of Blood River took root in the two deserted suburbs and easily covered the nearby sea area, cutting off the path to the sea. Chunong then released two blood-colored sword lights and hid them in the Blood River. As expected, there was someone who came to investigate that day. He was slashed by Yuan-Tu and Avicii and almost died. It was the young man from Heavenly Sky Mountain who saved him. Every day, he communicated with the Blood Sea and absorbed the true water of the Blood River to increase the power of the Great Formation. He practiced the techniques of the Devil Path and perfected the Devil Light, Blood Flame, Golden Knife, Fiend God, and many other techniques of the mystic Devil Orthodox sect. He took a step further and refined the Blood God's clone, refining it from a thick blood shadow to a faint bloody light. It was extremely powerful. Then he gathered the mysterious In Chi from underground and used the innate Tai fire to refine a pure white fire power. He threw it into the Blood God's primordial spirit and refined it into a 3-inch tall golden cicada with eyebrows and eyes. Then he used the mysterious In Chi to suppress the techniques of the Devil Path and refined it into a 1-foot tall black gourd. He threw the Tai fire primordial spirit flying knife into it to nourish. When the technique was cast, a golden light would freeze the enemy's primordial spirit. With a turn of the gourd, the golden cicada flying knife would fly out and cut the enemy's primordial spirit and put it into the gourd. It was a technique of the Devil Path that Chunong created by imitating the immortal slaying flying knife. It was called the mysterious In 25 Soul Slaying Knife. After dozens of days of preparation, only then did the people of the heterodox path and the young people of the orthodox path gather in the nearby sea area. The number of cultivators became more and more prosperous. Chunong still pretended to attack the prohibition for half a day and cultivated the Blood River Formation for half a day. It was unknown if it was because of his fierce reputation, but the nearby demonic path and heterodox path would rather deal with the orthodox path than come to him. On this day, Chunong was using the body of the Sky Demon to practice the wonderful form of the Sky Demon in the Blood River Formation. Endless demonic voices and shadows triggered the demons in the cultivators' hearts. For the past few days, he had already tempted several people with weak willpower to enter the Blood River Formation. They turned into flying zombies and white skeletal demons in the Blood River. Other than his fierce reputation, it also made the demons of the heterodox path stay further away from him. For the past 2 days, no one dared to go near him, so there should have been no change. However, today was different. Just after noon, there was an object wrapped in bloodlight flying towards the Blood River Formation. When it flew near a deserted island, there were people who wanted to stop it. A large grayish-green net was secretly spread out by someone to block that thing. But unexpectedly, that thing stopped and revealed its true form. It was a roll of sleeves, and when it suddenly unfolded, it was hundreds of feet wide. A large, ferocious hand stretched out from it and grabbed 2 people from the void, dragging them into the scroll. Not long after, a bone-chilling sound of grinding teeth could be heard. When it flew again, no one dared to stop it. It flew to the sky above the Blood River Formation. With a shake of the formation, it fell into Chunong's hands. It was the 9 heavens and 10 earths form and formless celestial demon painting. However, when Chunong opened it, the 95 different forms of gods and demons were no longer there. There was only an infinitely huge god and demon, with heaven above its head and hell below its feet, holding an axe that could split the heavens and earth. Chunong looked at the changes in the fiend god diagram and said with a smile, after supplementing the 13 fiend gods with faceless forms, the primordial fiend god formed by the 108 formless fiend gods, great fiend god Pangu, has an outline. In the future, I will replenish and refine it. It is not something that can be done in a short period of time. Since he wanted to test it out, he casually threw the celestial demon painting into the blood river formation. Endless blood clouds gathered, and the faint image of great demon god Pangu stood in the blood river. He raised his axe and chopped with all his might. Instantly, the blood river opened up an endless world, born and destroyed like the sands of the universe. The Nine Heavens Palace appeared above the great demon god's head. Countless beautiful goddesses, celestial voices, golden armored deities, celestial soldiers, and generals appeared, stepping on the 10 levels of hell. There were also countless demons and demons roaring with all their might. Then, the great demon god disintegrated into the images of 108 gods and demons. Each and every one of them was ferocious and terrifying, hiding in the blood river. The commotion this time was 10 times bigger than before. Confused by the celestial voices of the goddesses, a few more people rushed out from tens of miles away and entered the blood river formation. The celestial palaces and hell turned upside down and disappeared among the endless demons and demons. Chapter 504. Blood clouds churned in the eye of the sea, and within the abyss there were many demonic shadows. White clouds and purple gas rose from the eye of the sea, holding up a celestial palace high up in the sky. Indistinctly, one could see the golden-armored immortal general and the goddess in white moving about. The Emperor of Heaven was sitting high up in the main hall of the celestial palace. The god of thunder, the goddess of lightning, and the 6-dragon chariot were circling in the Milky Way outside the palace. There were a total of 36 Miaoxiang deities guarding the celestial palace. What a magnificent celestial scene! However, this scene did not make the surrounding cultivators envious. Instead, they were in awe and fear. Just now, they saw with their own eyes that the few unorthodox sect from overseas were bewitched by the celestial music and threw themselves into the celestial palace. In the blink of an eye, the heaven and earth turned upside down, and the celestial palace turned into a scene of hell. The golden-armored immortal general and the goddess in white turned into the original form of the flying zombie ghost mother, and the 36 deities also became ferocious. The celestial form, benevolent form, deity form, Buddha form, and auspicious beast form reappeared, revealing the white bone form, dragon and snake form, malicious ghost form, devil form, and evil beast form. The celestial emperor in the celestial palace transformed into a half-dragon and half-snake, with scales and horns on his body, like an abyss dragon. The god of thunder and mother of lightning were shockingly the thunder demon and lightning demon with a body covered in white bones and wreathed in phosphorescence. The bewitched cultivators who threw themselves into the celestial palace could not last more than 2 seconds before their true selves were erased by the sky demons. Their spiritual intelligence was diminished, and their living bodies stiffened to death. Flesh scales and bone spikes grew out of them, and they turned into flying yakshas. As for their souls that had been cultivated for years, they were hooked out by the gods and demons in the blink of an eye. Under the washing of the blood river, they turned into a streak of blood light and were soon refined into the celestial demon diagram, making the faces of the few formless gods and demons clearer. Chun-Ong sat in the eye of the blood river formation, communicating with the underworld blood sea in the void. Wisps of blood sea chi turned into a 12th grade blood lotus that supported him. As the blood river formation was activated by Chun-Ong, it absorbed the true water of blood sea in the river Styx blood sea, purifying the formless gods and demons in the diagram of gods and demons, getting rid of their stubborn thoughts, and slowly shaping their pure and stubborn demonic thoughts according to what he learned when he was refining the supreme demon body. The changes involved had already broken away from the small path of refining gods and demons of the mystic Orthodox sect. Instead, it was based on the changes of the sky demon, causing nameless troubles and becoming the creation sky demon Great Tao that was compatible with Chun Ang's Tao of creation. The 72 skeletal zombies were reborn from the dead. Their bodies slowly broke away from the puppets that were refined by the demonic path's magic and turned into real living beings. On the other hand, the 36 formless gods and demons were cleansed of their resentment and hostility. They lost their Yin nature and turned into pure Yang. A bit of blood flame burned from the depths of their demonic consciousness and gave birth to a bit of their true spirit. It got rid of the indestructible, pure, and stubborn Vajra thoughts. The remaining Yin Qi and hostility turned into countless distracting thoughts and demons. They were born and extinguished, becoming the root of the 36 gods and demons in the celestial demon diagram. The endless Yin devils were different from the 36 formless gods and demons. These demonic thoughts were just seeds of stubbornness. Like the distracting thoughts of humans, they infiltrated one's thoughts and needed the nourishment of distracting thoughts to grow. In the end, they turned into demons and took over one's true self. The 36 formless gods and devils were formed from the 36 most stubborn thoughts of all living beings in the universe. As long as anyone in this world had a stubborn thought, the formless gods and demons on the celestial demon diagram would sense it. Among them, the netherworld dragon was formed from the power of the people. As long as someone had the desire to manipulate others and seek for a higher position, it would sense the demon and increase its power. The thunder demon was nameless anger. The lightning demon was endless resentment. The wealth demon was greed. The moon mother was stubborn love, and the 7 saints of the sky and the 6 desires gods and demons were the stubbornness of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. It wasn't a low-tier magic like the illusion spell or the mid-tier magic of the mystic devil Orthodox sect that could confuse others. It was neither thought nor no thought, the upper-tier mystic devil method of great freedom. It would follow the stubbornness of the people and extinguish with birth. It would steal the thoughts of all living beings and become a demon. If this diagram was completed, in the future, the sentient beings in this world would have a little obsession in their hearts, and it would trigger the gods and devils in this diagram to descend a bit of devil consciousness, borrowing the sentient being's obsession to grow. When the obsession was gone, it would return to the god and devil diagram and transform into the power of the formless god and devil. The endless Yin demons in the painting would also grow due to the endless thoughts of the living beings. As long as the living beings weren't destroyed, the Yin demons would be endless. This method of using the obsession of all living beings to raise heavenly demons could be said to be terrifying. The power of this treasure would also reach an unimaginable level. Thus, the calamity of this treasure would also be unimaginable. If I insist on refining this diagram, I'm afraid that there will immediately be reincarnations of gods and Buddhas from the spiritual immortal realm to become my tribulation. The cultivation of this realm has already reached a certain level, and those bald donkeys and nuns who are just holding back from ascending will also be overjoyed. They will do everything they can to make things difficult for me, so that they can temper themselves in the devil's tribulation that I cause, transcend all the tribulations, and raise their Buddhahood to the level of Bodhisattva, or even Buddha. If you can enlighten me, you will be able to add another world to Buddhism, Venerable Buddha. If they are unfortunate enough to be enlightened by me, they can also become heavenly demons. The trouble and karma involved in this is really unimaginable. To become the master of the hearts of all living beings, to steal the thoughts of all living beings to worship themselves, this kind of method of the devil's path is already close to the orthodox method of Buddhism. It's not like what I did previously when I followed the heavenly Tao and created this world. With the protection of good fortune, the calamities are much lower. Instead, it's a move that goes against the heavens, and the calamities are endless. Chenong sighed and said, "It's too troublesome. This Tao isn't my Tao after all. It's not worth wasting so much time on it. Let it be. If the heavens let it succeed, the calamity won't be counted on me. He then gave up on the subsequent methods, leaving only the seed of obsession for it to grow on its own. He then focused most of his energy on the 72 heavenly demons with appearances. He wanted to turn these 72 heavenly demons with appearances into living beings, imitating the form of ferocious beasts. He wanted to become a kind of strange living beings that fit the heavenly Tao and could survive in the river of blood. If they were to multiply, they would become 72 kinds of living beings from beyond the heavens. They were born with magic and could reproduce. Chenong had set up 2 great formations in South Sea. The Blood River Formation was ferocious, while the Celestial Demon Diagram was terrifying. Even though he didn't have the intention to cultivate the heavenly demons to the level of his Mahesvara demon transformation, he had, after all, cultivated the foundation. Within a radius of 10,000 miles, all living beings could sense the 36 heavenly demons silently. They nourished their power, and endless demons were born in response to their distracting thoughts. It was unknown how many cultivators were secretly controlled by the heavenly demons. In their muddle-headed state, they threw themselves into the Blood River Formation and became the heavenly demons of the Celestial Demon Diagram's nourishment. In just a month's time, the fearsome name of Patriarch River Styx that suppressed South Sea was known by everyone in the 4 seas. Chapter 505. As time passed, the power of the god-demon drawing of the 9 heavens and 10 earths rose to an inexplicable level. It was originally a demonic treasure that Chun Ong casually made, but now it was one of his 3 most powerful enchanted treasures. It had the potential to surpass the golden ship of creation. However, its foundation was still not stable. When it sensed more living beings, it would surpass the golden ship in less than 10 years. One must know that Chun Ong had spent countless heavenly treasures and materials to create the gold-transmuted ship. He had spent a lot of effort, and the Celestial Demon Diagram was something he had casually created. These 108 formless celestial demons weren't anything special. They were just the lives of some unorthodox cultivators. They were worthless like ants, yet they were comparable to the golden ship of creation. Although it was not as powerful as the golden ship of fate, the heavenly thunder that could destroy heaven and earth, the sun god's fire wings that were comparable to the sun, and the mysterious yin and yang primordial magnetic divine light that were the most powerful and destructive means in the universe. It could sneak into people's hearts, scheme, battle, and curse victory. It was even more helpful in improving one's cultivation. Chun Ong believed that if these 2 treasures were to be chosen by the mighty people in the world, 99% of them would choose the god-demon drawing. Buddhism and Diabolism would definitely choose the god-demon drawing. This was because this was a treasure to achieve Taoism. It was entrusted to Chun Ong to open the path of Diabolism's Tao of creation. For Buddhism and Diabolism, its value was immeasurable. In Chun Ang's hands, only the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation, which was entrusted with the fate of the 4 seas, could surpass this treasure. Now that the 2 treasures had set up a formation here, even though the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation only displayed the Blood River Formation, the God-Demon Drawing's 9 Heavens and 10 Earth Formation was activated. The 2 complemented each other, and the Sky Demon and Blood Demon complemented each other. Even though the young man of Tiangong Mountain, the 7 friends of Mount Li, and the poisonous dragon of Diabolism were secretly protecting them, and Xianyuan the Great was watching, they did not dare to move. They could tell that this great formation was the most powerful technique of the demonic faction, and it was even more terrifying than the few lost methods of the demonic faction to destroy the world in the past. Only the Yin and Yang dust formation of the righteous faction could contend against it. But now that the formation had been formed, even if the Amaze sect came with the Yin and Yang dust formation that was suppressed by the Tai Chin divine talisman, it would be difficult for them to resist without the geographical advantage. Now the only flaw of this formation was that Chun Ang's cultivation level was not even that of an individual immortal. This caused some contempt in the righteous path, and there were countless people from the side sects of the devil path who coveted this formation. They could not wait to kill Chun-Ong immediately, seize the formation map, and set up this great formation in their own lair that could be relied on to survive. With the formation I of Chun-Ang's celestial demon diagram, within a radius of 10,000 miles, except for a few old monsters who were faintly at the level of celestial immortals, they were all secretly sensed by the celestial demon diagram and became his eyes and ears. To Chun-Ong, their thoughts and secret plans were as clear as the lines on his palm. How could he not laugh? With the help of these two formations, not to mention Chun-Ang's supreme celestial demon body, even the idiot green-robed patriarch would have a peerless demonic power here. Moreover, Chun-Ang's technique was strengthened to the extent that he regarded many people here as dirt. This made him often rise up and shout, "Fellow Taoism friends, your doom has come. We are fated to meet." Then, he would use the two swords of Yuan-Tu and Avicii to kill the hundreds of cultivators within a radius of 10,000 miles. Fortunately, he knew that this was the delusion caused by the celestial demon body, so he often restrained his thoughts and calmed his murderous intent. Otherwise, with the sword principle of true river Styx, the 10,000 miles would have turned into a killing field. The more I act, the more Master Daozu, the more I look like him. I'm no longer the grassroots team that I used to be. Although I only created it to capture the space of the Master God, it's quite beneficial to use this identity now. It's a great inspiration for my research, so I might as well keep in the future. In this case, I can't be careless anymore. At least, I can't coat the waterscape sword with a layer of bloodlight and use it as Yuan-Tu and Avicii. This world is frighteningly deep, and there are countless experts. Who knows when an expert will come and see through its true form? There are many hidden dangers, so it's better to sacrifice and refine 2 more flying swords. As he thought of this, Chun-Ong took out many precious treasures of innate true gold, such as the essence of 5 metals, Tai primordial essence, and true water of Blood River Formation. Before he finished preparing the materials, many old monsters in the surroundings couldn't hold back anymore and sent people to test the formation. The one who came first was an unorthodox disciple who had just become a rogue immortal. He didn't even have the mana of the venerable of 5 desires, yet he came to challenge the formation. His tone was unbelievably arrogant. He stood outside the formation and shouted at Chun-Ong, "Junior River Styx, since you invited us here to discuss important matters, why are you setting up this evil formation? Why don't you release the formation and let us in? If we let the righteous cultivators take advantage of us, wouldn't we be the sinners of the demonic path?" Initially, Chun-Ong didn't want to bother with this ignorant person who wanted to be his master. He wanted to wait until the demon head on the celestial demon diagram slowly erased his true self and turned him into a puppet. However, he didn't expect that the demon head would take his silence as a sign of retreat. He became even more arrogant and started scolding outside. Anger rose in Chun-Ang's heart. He controlled the formation to fluctuate, and the river Styx, who was sitting in the celestial demon diagram, opened one of his eyes. He sucked in all the cultivators whose chi was similar to his and whose fate force was vaguely connected to each other, and sent them to the gods and demons. He slowly let out a voice from the formation. "Sinners of the demonic path? Do you know what the demonic path is? How dare you talk about the great Tao of the demonic path with me?" The man screamed. With bloodshot eyes, he wanted to charge into the formation to save his family. However, he was not very capable. Before he could enter the formation, he was crushed to death by one of the gods and demons. The cultivators nearby looked at the blood that splattered in midair. Those who were not sober enough suddenly came back to their senses and realized their position. Those who were clamoring to teach Chun-Ong a lesson had now shut their mouths. Under the direction of his Sifu, Lord of 5 Evils rose into the air and flew slowly to the edge of Chun-Ang's formation. With a loud voice, he said, "My friend, River Styx, you've set up a formation that has trapped those hypocrites from the righteous path. You've shown us the power of the demonic path. However, the restrictive spell set up by Reverend Redstaff is truly extraordinary. My friend, River Styx, has set up this formation for over a month, but he still couldn't save that senior heavenly devil. Clearly, this is not the work of one person. Why don't you open up a path and let us give it a try, lest those hypocrites from the righteous path take advantage of us? Sitting on the blood lotus, Chun-Ong smiled and said, "This formation of mine needs the strength of 49 people to unleash its full power. Otherwise, it can only rely on its instinctive changes. It's more than enough to defend, but not enough to attack. Since my friend is so righteous, why don't you stay in the formation and work together to save that senior heavenly devil? If you have the great Tao to teach us in the future, we'll be worthy of it." Lord of Five Evils pondered for a moment and said, "It's not impossible. But if my friend wants to attack us and we're trapped in the formation, we won't be able to do anything to help us." Many malicious thoughts were running through his mind. He wanted to lure Chun-Ong out, kill him, occupy the formation, release the heavenly devil, and refine him into a blood god. In the depths of his mind, there was a hidden thought. He wanted to lure his master, Xinyuan the Great, into the formation as well. When he and the heavenly devil were both injured, he would ambush them and refine them into his blood god. Chun-Ong used the blood god in his body to peep at his hidden thoughts. He slowly enjoyed it. The many obsessions in the celestial and demon painting sneaked into his mind and quietly triggered his yin fire. When the desire in his mind was raging, an inner and outer demon would suddenly combine and refine his original self. Unknowingly, he had taken control of his original self. Although his conscious memory was still there, he only treated Chun-Ong as his supreme master. Chapter 506. Chun-Ong had planted a spy on the side of the evil sections. He also had many backup plans that he had previously released. This meant that there was no way that he would be able to control this side. Even if there were any changes, he would be able to detect it with the backup plan that he had. On the other hand, on the side of the righteous, because the disciples had good temperament and cultivation, even if they had some distracting thoughts, the sky demon on the celestial demon diagram would sense it and not leak any important information. Although they could see the actions on the surface, it was hard to guard against the schemes behind the scenes. As Chun-Ong was pondering, he received a letter from the female cultivator, Tan-Yin. She asked him to come to the lake island for a chat. The two of them had previously agreed to meet on this desolate reef. However, this reef was occupied by the Blood River Formation set up by River Styx. Naturally, they could not meet and could only send a flying sword letter to invite him over. This was because they had previously agreed that when Tan-Yin called out Chun-Ang's name, the flying sword would find the way. It was the same this time. Chun-Ong sensed a faint connection and manipulated the heavenly demon in the formless celestial demon, painting to scoop the flying sword from the void. After thinking for a while, he replied to her and put the flying sword back. His Blood River primordial spirit turned from evil to righteous and turned into the mystic doors by Luo primordial spirit baby. He still looked like a young man and came out from the back of the head of the supreme sky demon. He looked at River Styx and smiled. Spiritual light appeared under his feet, and he flew over with a thought. The Mystic Door's spiritual light escape technique was one of the fastest escape techniques in the universe. In the boundless universe, it could be reached with a thought. Hence, its speed was even faster than the flying sword letter. The Lake of Trust Island was a stronghold of the righteous. It originally belonged to the South Sea rogue cultivator, Jun Yozi. It was his cultivation courtyard. He had always admired the righteous, and in the future when he reincarnated, he would need to trouble a righteous senior to take him in. Hence, when he heard that the sky demon had appeared in the sea where his courtyard was located, he quickly offered it up and arranged for the righteous seniors to stay. As a result, the original crude immortal's cave was naturally no longer suitable. The new talents of the righteous path in the last 50 years used Tao techniques to cut down the bamboo trees on the island and built a few rather elegant small buildings on the island, inviting the seniors who came from afar to stay. In order to guard against the sneak attacks of the heterodox demons, they had also set up many powerful prohibitions on the island. Naturally, this was not a problem for Chun-Ong. It was just that he was invited, so he could not barge in and embarrass the host. He waited for a while and waited for the flying sword to send the message in. Only then did he capture a thread of his voice and send it into the lake of Trust Island, following that thread of aura down. Just as Tan Yun was retrieving her flying sword, she suddenly heard Chun Ang's voice in her ear. "Fellow Taoist Tan, I was impatient after receiving your letter, so I took the liberty to visit you. Please forgive me." At this time, Tan Yun was talking about Dao with a female cultivator of the mystic door whom she had just met. When the female cultivator saw that Tan Yun had received the flying sword message, she was surprised. After a while, she suddenly froze and then beamed with joy. A trace of excitement flashed in her eyes. She felt strange and couldn't help but whisper, "Sister Tan? Sister Tan?" Tan Yun was startled and said happily, "Sister Jing, do you still remember that Chendaoyu I told you about?" Opposite her was the daughter of the Origin Tortoise Hall's itinerant celestial Yi Zhou of the South Sea. She was the female infant goddess Yi Jing who would later enter the Amei sect. She naturally wouldn't be unaware of such a huge incident in the South Sea, so she went to the East Sea to visit the three elders of the Amei sect. Coincidentally, she met Tan Yun who came to seek help. They became good friends and came to the South Sea together to avert this calamity. When she heard what Tan Yun said, she actually didn't think much of it. She was a local ghost in the South Sea, so she had heard of all the slightly famous itinerant celestials. Even the old monsters of the previous generation who hadn't appeared for a long time. Her father Yi Zhou was afraid that she would be ignorant and cause a huge disaster, so he explained it to her in detail. With such knowledge, who in the Central Plains could escape her knowledge? Even though Tan Yun mentioned Chun Ong many times, her words were full of praises, and her tone even vaguely implied that he was the number one person in the younger generation of the Four Seas. She didn't refute because she cared about her good friend's face. However, in her heart, she only thought of Chun Ong as someone who deceived the world and was merely a person from the unorthodox school with some mana. She thought, this person could deceive Sister Tan to the point of being head over heels for him, so he must be someone with a sharp tongue. Even though Sister Tan rebuilt her foundation and changed her mana to the Ice Soul Divine Light, and even though she's just an unorthodox school, she's still a first-rate junior with a bright future. However, her experience is still lacking, and her vision is still the same as when she was in the unorthodox school. She actually can't tell the difference between the dragon and the snake. However, I have to remind her secretly. She immediately agreed. Is it that Chun Daoyu with extraordinary mana that Sister mentioned? Tan Yun didn't hear the coldness in her words and continued to say passionately, "Yes. I just sent him a letter with my flying sword and arranged to meet at Lake Trust Island. I didn't expect to hear that he's already outside the island the moment I receive the letter, so I'm going to welcome him. Sister can wait for me here for a while." Yi Jing looked down on her even more when she heard this and thought, he came so quickly, so it's obvious that he's not far from Lake Trust Island. However, he has no referral and can't even enter the island. What kind of mana could such a person have? I have to remind Sister to be careful and not be tricked by that person again. With this thought, she also stood up and said, I've long heard of that Chun Daoyu's name, but I've never seen him before. I'm really curious here. May Sister introduce me to him? Her tone implied that Chun Ang's name was only heard from Tan Yun, which was illogical. However, Tan Yun had seen Chun Ang's abilities and didn't think of this. She still agreed passionately, causing Yi Jing to sigh inwardly and become even more determined to expose Chun Ong. He called out to his elder brother, Yi Chung, and went to welcome Chun Ong. Chun Ong had been waiting at the entrance of the island for a while. Tan Yun saw that he looked younger than she remembered and couldn't help but ask with concern, Chun Daoyu, what's wrong? On the other hand, Yi Jing and Yi Chung, the two siblings, saw Chun Ang's sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, good looks, and the age of 13 or 14. Their eyes lit up. Upon closer inspection, he really had an extraordinary celestial bone structure. Even though they dispelled a layer of disdain, they didn't believe Tan Yun's words even more. They could tell that even if this wasn't Chun Ang's real age, he shouldn't be too old. Even though there were many good and evil people like Child of Bliss and Child of the Sand Deity, they wouldn't have such a lively air between their brows. This was because young people were lively, while old people were calm. This was a natural principle, a temperament that came from the spirit. It wasn't something that could be disguised with supernatural power. Forcefully imitating it would only hinder one's state of mind, which was detrimental to one's Tao. When I first came here, because the outskirts of the seas were occupied by river Styx, and he even used the Blood River formation to seal the sea's eye, I was indignant and fought with him for a few rounds. I was at a disadvantage, and my physical body was trapped by him and sealed in the sea's eye. I could only travel with my primordial spirit to meet fellow Taoists. Chenong didn't mind and explained with a smile. Chapter 507. Yi Jing felt that she had seen through Chen Ang's true colors, so she was no longer courteous and continued. I see. This old demon river, Styx's Blood River formation, is very powerful. Many people from the righteous and evil sect have tried to explore it, but none of them returned. Chun Daoyu was able to escape with his primordial spirit, so his cultivation base must be extraordinary. It just so happens that this brother of mine wants to gather people to enter the formation again to test it out. May I know where my friend's body is trapped? Are you willing to go with him and rescue him? Her words were not wrong, but there was a hint of sarcasm in her tone. Not only could Chenong sense her dissatisfaction with him, but even Tanyan sensed that something was wrong. Chenong only smiled faintly and said, Old Demon River Styx? Who gave him that name? Before Yi Jing could answer, Yi Cheng interrupted, So you don't even know about that old demon after fighting him so many times? He looked up at Chenong and sneered, Old Demon River Styx is very powerful, but we know nothing about him. It's as if he appeared out of nowhere. After we invited Divine, Nun, Exai, and Ru to take a look, we found out that he is an ancient demon. He must be a demon who has cultivated for many years and achieved Tao in ancient times. He hid until now, and when he heard that something happened to the heavenly demon, he came out to find a chance to prove his Tao. That's why he's called Old Demon River Styx. I didn't expect that you, Qin Daoyu, wouldn't know about such a small matter after fighting him so many times. Tan Yin understood the meaning behind his words and immediately said anxiously, You're wrong, fellow Daoyu Yi. That old demon river, Styx, only hides in the formation and uses it to cause trouble. Qin Daoyu might not have the chance to meet him. When she saw the Yi siblings' indifference, she felt even more indignant and wanted to continue explaining for Chun Ong. Chun Ong only waved his hand lightly and said, I see. I saw that River Styx only had the stature of a young man, and he was probably about the same age as me. I didn't expect him to be called an old demon. It seems like I'm ignorant and ill-informed. Amused, Tianyun continued, but my body is sealed at the core of the sea eye, the cold spring. That's where River Styx's array formation is strongest. Fellow Taoist E, it's best that you don't take the risk. Initially, the E siblings did not believe his words. Now, they were certain that Chunong was lying. Yi Jing still cared about Tanyun's face, but Yi Ching did not even look him in the eye. He only snorted lightly, showing his disdain. Naturally, Chenong didn't care. To put it bluntly, the Yi siblings were like ants in his eyes. No matter what they thought of them, Chenong didn't care. But as a righteous expert, he kindly reminded them, What kind of tricks do you have? This Blood River array is not to be trifled with. River Styx is an expert in spells, and his sword light is the fiercest. Fighting him with his sword is more dangerous than entering the array. From what I know, this array only has 2 simple transformations. They're more powerful ones. If fellow Taoist isn't prepared, you might be in danger. I Ching only looked at him from the corner of his eyes and said in disdain, Do you know the power of my family's evading demon shuttle? It was still Yi Jing who didn't want to fall out with Tanyan. She forced herself to restrain herself and explained, The 9 Heavens 10 Earth's demon-repelling divine shuttle is made by my father from the 1,000-year-old fine iron at the bottom of the sea and ground it with 10,000 years of North Pole black ice. It's shaped like a woven shuttle, but when it's not in use, it's only 98 pieces of 5-colored steel that are similar to willow leaves and only a few inches long. Once it's in use, the willow leaf will be 3 feet long. It will close by itself and wrap around the user without any gaps. The user can control it as they please. She emphasized the last few words because she wanted to embarrass the person in front of her. Unexpectedly, Chun-Ong did not mind and continued, I've heard of the fame of the Turtle Palace's Izhou's magic treasure. However, there's another array in the River Styx Blood River array, the evading demon array of the 9 heavens and 10 earths. It can suppress the universe and form a world of its own. Its power is beyond your imagination. Although the evading demon shuttle is extraordinary, I'm afraid it might not be able to block it. What he said was very appropriate. With the power of the 2 arrays, the Yin-Yang dust array might not be as destructive as the evading demon shuttle. Let Izhou say, with the evading demon shuttle in hand, did he have the confidence to break the Yin-Yang dust array? Needless to say, the younger generation of the Yi siblings. However, Yi-Chung was already impatient. He flicked his sleeves and said, other than the magnetic force, what restriction has the evading demon shuttle been afraid of? In my father's hands, breaking the array of the overseas experts is as easy as drinking water. He has told me all the taboos. There's no need for you to remind me. As for your evading demon array of the 9 heavens and 10 earths, I've never heard of it. Where did you hear about it? As he spoke, he glanced at Chun-Ong and sneered. I'm afraid you made it up. Yi Jing did not stop her brother. She was already tired of trying to persuade Tan Yin. This was the last reminder. If Tan Yin still did not come to her senses, she would be hopelessly stupid and not fit to be her friend. Chun-Ong tried his best, but the siblings did not listen. Anyway, he had done his part. If they did not repent and turned into the River Styx old demon to deal with them in the array, he did not have to hold back. If Heart, like the immortal nun, and the 3 fairies of the Eastern Sea did not come to make trouble, Izhou would have lost one of his sons today. Tan Yun smiled and left. Tan Yun could not persuade her. She looked at Yi Jing awkwardly and thought of the benefits of Chun-Ong. She clenched her teeth and chased after her. Yi-Chung looked at her back and sighed. Sister has offended your friend today. She lost face like this, I'm afraid. Yi Jing only glanced at Tan Yun's back and said, that's because she did not come to her senses. I thought she was someone who could be cultivated, but I didn't expect her to be so stupid. If that's the case, how would I dare to be friends with her? She gave up her last chance and willingly joined the side of the unorthodox sect. She is not on the same path as us. Although it is a pity that she has the ice spirit divine light as a foundation, it is easy to cultivate mana, but it is hard to set one's mind. With such poor judgment of people, she is not destined. Sigh. In the future, if she still has good fortune, I will take care of her again. The 2 siblings put themselves on a high pedestal. They pretended to casually guide Chun-Ong and Tan Yun's futures, greatly satisfying their sense of control. Then, they went to prepare to break the formation. When Chun-Ong saw the 2 again, it was already nighttime. A few outstanding disciples of the righteous path held the demon-repelling shuttle of the 9 heavens and 10 earths and tried to break the formation together. They thought that with the help of the shuttle, even if they could not break the formation, it would not be a problem for them to escape. Therefore, when they left the formation, their morale was high. Yi-Ching even looked at Chun-Ong meaningfully. He was chatting and laughing with his friends. Beside him were the most outstanding figures of the righteous path's younger generation. They thought that the Blood River formation of River Styx was as easy as walking on flat ground. Since he wanted to test his skills, he released his conveyance light and activated the shuttle. He turned into a golden light and charged into the surging Blood River formation. The conveyance light broke through the outer layer of the blood cloud and entered the Blood River. Chapter 508. Because Lake Trust Island was quite a distance away from the eye of the sea, the view wasn't very clear. Therefore, some righteous Taoists released a rainbow cloud that looked like a red sunset and hung it near the formation set up by River Styx, allowing people to observe the ceremony. Chun-Ong brought Tan Yun up this magic treasure. Luckily, the place was spacious enough, wasn't crowded even with dozens of people standing on it. Tianxiang novel too, most of the people who came were wandering immortals from overseas. There were also some Mystic Door descendants and old seniors from Middle-earth who came to subdue demons. They were all very confident and smiled as they watched the 9 heavens 10 earths demon avoidance shuttle enter the formation. Someone laughed and said, "Yi Chun will definitely be able to win the jackpot for us this time." When Yi Jing saw Chun Ong and Tan Yun, she inched closer and smiled. "Chen Daoyu, Sister Tan, you're here too." Chen Ong and Tan Yun could only return the greeting. She then said, "It's hard to tell if my brother's fate is good or bad. It's reasonable for Chen Daoyu to want to protect himself. However, I heard that Chen Daoyu had entered this formation before and luckily escaped. I wonder if you can give us some pointers?" Her words attracted everyone's attention. From time to time, people would look at her. When they heard the last sentence, a man in a green scholar's robe laughed and said, "Where did this toad come from? How arrogant." He looked at Chun Ong mockingly and said, "So you're the one who said such ridiculous words? Since you walked through this formation once, what's the harm in walking through it again? Brother, he invited you to come along, but you're making excuses here. I'm ashamed to be in the same line as you." When he finished, he waved his sleeves and brushed away the mist between them. A person behind him frowned and looked at Chun Ong and Tan Yun. After hearing the reprimand of the man in green scholar's robe, he suddenly said, "My colorful cloud pouch is an elegant item. It only carries noblemen's seniors. How can a person from a nunnery like you deserve it? Get out of here." Before his voice faded away, he made a hand seal to disperse the colorful clouds under Chenang's feet. He deliberately wanted to embarrass Chenang. Such actions were simply disdainful of Chun Ong to the extreme. He was also an itinerant immortal, and he saw that Chun Ong was just an ordinary unorthodox disciple. There were dozens of itinerant immortal experts here, and he himself was from a large overseas sect. His father, brothers, and family had more itinerant immortals than ordinary sects, so he really did not think that he needed to take Chenang seriously. However, he did not know that the number of loose immortals killed by Chun Ang's sword was much more than all the people here. Even if his entire family was added up, it would not be even a tenth of the souls killed by Chun Ang's sword. Chun Ong summoned the golden ship of fortune and stepped on it. Suddenly, he looked at Yi Jing and sighed. "Since Missy insists on my guidance, then I'll make a small mistake. With all due respect, everyone here will most likely die. That brother, he will most likely not be able to come back alive. Please be prepared, Miss E, lest you cause the death of Mr. Yi's son and daughter in a moment of impulse." Suddenly, he thought of something and said, "Oh, I forgot that fellow Taoist, he has 2 sons, but Mr. Izhou does not have to worry about his bloodline being cut off." As soon as he said this, Yi Jing could no longer hold it in. Even though she had a good upbringing, she still blushed and scolded, "Thief! How dare you bully my brother?" Then, she took out the demon-slaying moon crossbow and planned to punish Chenang. The demon-slaying moon crossbow was shaped like a crossbow barrel, and there were 5 colorless golden pellets hidden in it. There was a spring in the middle, and it could be released and released at will. It could break the demonic fire, demonic smoke, demonic light, and poisonous sand. It was even more powerful when used to kill enemies. Then, Yi Jing raised her hand, and a ball of light shot right at Chenang. However, Tan Yun was still standing beside her, so she did not hold back at all. Clearly, she was really angry now. The ball of light exploded and hit Chenang, but it did not even cause a ripple in the golden light of the golden ship of fortune. Yi Jing was in disbelief, and the green-robed scholar beside her was even more shocked. Chenang smiled and pointed at the golden ship he was sitting on. He said calmly, "It's a pity that your mind is not clear. I won't hold it against you for making such a big mistake. Next, I'll just give you a small punishment. If you can take it, then the karma will be over. But if you can't, then I'll just pity you for your years of hard work." When he finished, he did not waste any more words with her. A Tai 5 primordial spirit thunder railgun came out from the golden ship, and the creation divine thunderball in the core accumulated a great force. Then it shot out. Someone at the side shouted, "Fellow Taoist, please show mercy." Suddenly, a spot of Buddha light appeared and protected Yi Jing. The power of the golden ship of fortune's cannon was really not something a human could handle. Even with the protection of the Buddha light, it still hit Yi Jing so hard that she almost fainted. Even though she forced herself to wake up, she still ended up with her internal organs burning, and her corporeal body's tendons and bones broken. Chunong looked at the spot where the Buddha light was extinguished, and he said with a smile, "Since the deity Xenru helped, then I'll give her some face." He then sighed at Yi Jing. "I said good words first, but you didn't listen. Now that you hit me with a crossbow, I'll return it with a cannon. Are you satisfied?" Yi Jing was severely injured and speechless, so she could only nod with a defeated expression. Chunong then nodded and said, "Then this karma will be over. Otherwise, I'll bully the weak." If she was not willing to comply, then Chunong could only not give face to Amei and Xinru and give her another celestial, slaying godly thunder cannon. What happened to Chunong shocked everyone, not to mention the other two people who were trembling in fear. Even Yi Jing was scared out of her wits when she came back to her senses. It was not because she was afraid of Chunong's methods, but when she thought about the inside story of the old demon river Styx that Chunong had mentioned, now that Chunong's identity was different, what he said might not be false. She was afraid that she would harm her brother, and her fear was at its peak. She was about to send a letter to summon Yi Chung back, but it seemed like it was too late. A clear shout was heard from the Blood River Formation. Since ancient times, heroes have always been arrogant, and they will only die under the sword of Avicii. Yuan-Tu's immortal blood has not been wiped off, so don't panic when you go to River Styx. A black-robed youth stepped out of the formation on a red lotus. Behind him were two scarlet sword gleams, and the murderous aura was so sharp that it made one's liver tremble. The youth scanned the good and evil outside the formation, and his gaze stopped on the spiritual shuttle that was struggling in the Blood River Formation. Suddenly Mingy smiled. Without waiting for Yi Jing to cry out in pain, two ferocious sword gleams were already unsheathed. With just one sword, he slashed apart Xinru Shun's guiding Buddha's light, and with another sword, he forced Ku Xintuo's invisible flying sword to retreat. Without waiting for the sword gleams to dissipate, he made another turn at an impossible place. The two sword gleams merged into one and pierced through the spiritual shuttle, killing all the good faction rookies on it. Yi Jing watched as her brother's heart was pierced by a red thread-like sword gleam, as if all the blood in his body had been extracted. His lonely soul was also drenched by a wave of the Blood River, and was helplessly pulled into the depths of the Blood River. The spiritual light of his soul was stained with a layer of blood, and a bit of his true spirit was thrown into that unknown place. After being stained by the blood, Yuan-Tu and Avicii's sword gleams increased by another 30%. With a shake of the Blood River Formation, the formation suddenly expanded, and the blood clouds swallowed and spat out, covering a radius of tens of miles. First, Yuan-Tu's sword slashed through the obstruction of Xian Yuan the Great's talisman, and killed more than 10 people from the demonic path. Then, Avicii's sword gleams moved gracefully, and with a myriad of phenomena, he forcefully slashed Ku Xintuo's body out of the void. After slashing him 12 times, the Tai Ching celestial light protecting his body was broken, and he was almost killed. Chapter 509. Initially, many people in the righteous path were worried that the River Styx old demon would collude with the demons and take the opportunity to protect them. Then, in this battle of swords, the righteous path would be at a disadvantage. With such powerful swordsmanship, he could create an opening in the righteous path of immortals, and many of them would be doomed. Who knew that the River Styx would be so deranged that he would even kill his own people? Of course, they would not cheer for this. Only someone slapped his flying sword and said, "That old demon is crazy. Fellow Taoists, don't fight him head-on. Retreat for now, and let those demon bastards fight among themselves." Xian Yuan the Great leaped into a dark golden escape light and released a streak of Yin thunder. Among the heretics, only the Yin thunder cultivated by the Xian Yuan Old Monster and Jiolai Celestial Lord were the most powerful. One lightning pearl could corrode thousands of miles, and it could easily cause boundless killing sins. It could destroy the earth veins and feng shui, and within hundreds of thousands of miles, the terrifying scene of the earth, water, wind, and thunder in the primordial era would appear. He laughed and said, "River Styx, Brad, if you were still hiding in this formation, I wouldn't be able to do anything to you. But since you have walked out, don't go back. Don't go back. If you are willing to pledge allegiance to me, there is still room for discussion. If not, don't blame me for using your demonic fire to refine your soul." Deity Nun Exanru yelled, "Old monster, you are too arrogant. How would she dare to let Xianyuan the Great's thunder explode and destroy the billions of lives here?" The little silk Buddha's light shone and split the heavens. It forcefully separated the place where the immortals were fighting their swords from the vast land of Southern Sea. It even protected most of the righteous cultivators behind the Buddha's light. Ascetic Buddha secretly used the Tai Ching celestial technique to destroy many of Xianyuan the Great's thunder. However, it was too late, and most of the thunder had already touched the sea. If these thunders were to explode, these experts would not be worried, but those rookies of the righteous path who rode the clouds too close might not even be able to keep their souls. Just as the group of righteous elites were about to break into pieces, a 3-foot-high wave suddenly rose from the surface of the sea. Chun Ong stepped on the surface of the sea, and the boundless Milky Way soared into the sky, enveloping the hundreds of thunders. With a wave of his hand, the Milky Way transformed into an endless sea of stars, and a drop of true water was a world, dissolving the thunders into nothingness. Divine Nun Enlightened Heart smiled. "Thank you for your help, fellow cultivator." Chenong only smiled and said, "Since we are here, how can we allow this old monster to harm the living? Everyone, be careful." The Xianyuan old monster did not know what he was relying on. He was not afraid of being punished by the heavens if he killed too many people. With him letting go, everyone's hands and feet were tied. "I have fought with River Styx thrice, and even though I could not do anything to him, I have secretly set up a great formation here. It's a pity that before he entered the trap, I had no choice but to use it. Everyone, please wait for me to control the great formation and isolate this place so that everyone can fight freely and not have to worry about being punished by the heavens." With the One Life Heavenly Water Banner in his hand, Chenong only needed to move one layer of the yellow river of 9 bends. The true water of heavenly water that was like the Milky Way suddenly melted, and a drop of water that could fill up Poyang and Dongting Lake drowned the world in an instant. In a world formed by the yellow river of 9 bends, it evolved into a boundless sea. As the One Life Heavenly Water Banner swayed, heaven and earth flipped, and under their feet, there was an immeasurable amount of seawater that was tens of thousands of feet deep, overturned, and poured towards everyone in the formation. The scene of the 4 seas overturning was truly shocking. Not to mention the fear in the hearts of the old demons, they thought, when did the righteous path have such a person? Such a method really has the power to destroy heaven and earth. I wonder if the righteous path has any more tricks up their sleeves? Even a mighty figures of heart like Goddess Nun, ascetic Buddha, the mystic door, and Buddhism were astonished. Such power, if he were to unleash it freely, wouldn't he be able to drown the whole of Central Plains? With the 4 seas overturning, the people of Central Plains wouldn't have to be fed with fishes and prawns. They would just have to wait for the 4 seas to fall and become meat pancakes. Ascetic Buddha sighed and said, "I've heard from the 2 Taoist friends of Mount Song that this person has unparalleled power and is blessed by the fate energy of the 4 seas. In the future, he will be the number 1 person in the 4 seas. I originally thought that the 2 Taoist friends were just boasting, but now I know that the 2 of you are just being humble. With such a method, he is already the number 1 person in the 4 seas." Chun Ang's voice broke through the realm and came over. "Everyone, please use all your methods. These old demons have offended the demon River Styx. They are courting death. The fate energy of the River Styx is connected to the Blood Sea, is the greatest counter to the cultivators in the world. His Tao fruit is special. It is a tribulation with all living beings. Look. The evil chi of those demons has been shaved off. They're showing their true form of the tribulation of death. Everyone can use this to get rid of the demons. However, even though everyone's fate energy is deep and not as shallow as that of the demon path, you still can't go against this person recklessly. Otherwise, with the fate energy intertwining, no matter how strong your fate energy is, you won't be able to protect yourself. If you go against him, you will be dragged into the tribulation of death. If it wasn't for him killing you and breaking through the tribulation, his cultivation would be higher, and even I wouldn't be his match. It was him who faced the tribulation of death, his hot blood flowing down the drain. Chen Ang's words had the intention of isolating the demon path, but more importantly, it was to remind the people of the righteous path not to offend the supreme heavenly demon's clone, or else River Styx's murderous intent would skyrocket, and he would kill all of them. Not only would it attract the attention of the spiritual realm, but it might also create more opportunities for the master gods. Chen would never do such a thing that would harm himself and benefit others. In the yellow river of 9 bends formation, the blood clouds rumbled and the blood river flowed. River Styx appeared in midair on a red lotus, and he let out a wild cry. He said joyfully, "Cultivation is a path that goes against the heavens. I advise you not to be insolent. Be it ghosts, gods, demons, Buddhas, or immortals, you will die under the sword of Avicii." He looked around and said, "My friends, River Styx will send you on your way now." 2 blood-like flying swords flew out again. This time, even the venerable poisonous dragon suffered a great loss. He only dealt with 1 sword gleam on the surface, but he did not expect that the sword gleam of Yuan-Tu and Avicii's swords would split into 2. On the surface, there is only a bit of sharp sword chi, but under the sword gleam, the true body of the demon's sword was hidden. His protective talisman and demon light were easily torn apart like silk. Fortunately, his mana was strong, and he could move 3 feet in the face of danger, avoiding his vitals, and only his calves were chopped off. Xianyuan the Great practiced the Blood God Sutra from another world, and had long refined his body into a blood god. Although he was restrained by the 2 swords, it was easy for him to fly. Yuan-Tu's sword gleam that slashed at him was easily dodged by him in a bloody shadow. However, the demons that were hiding behind were not so lucky. They only felt their spirits go blank, and then numbness, pain, and itchiness attacked them at the same time. Their eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and their telegnosis were all out of control. One by one, they could not stand still on their flying swords and tridents, and fell head first to the ground. In midair, they were bitten in half by the white-boned demons, and fell into the blood clouds. Demon fire came out of their 7 orifices, and they burned themselves into skeletons. Or their bodies turned into a puddle of blood, or they became crazy and suddenly attacked their fellow sect members next to them. In the beginning, the few old demons thought that it was the power of the blood river formation itself. It was not until one of the old demons that had been practicing demon skills for many years and a disciple of Xianyuan Old Monster suddenly turned into a demon and killed the demons that were seeking protection that they realized that something was wrong. Chapter 510. At this moment, the boundless seawater was overturned and millions of tons of seawater were pressing down on them. Other than the most powerful experts, everyone else was scared out of their wits. Yi Jing's face turned pale as she watched from outside the Buddha's light. She said sadly, "One wrong thought caused such a huge disaster for my father and caused my elder brother's death. Even if I find a reincarnated body in the future, my foundation will be ruined for several lifetimes." The righteous cultivators were fine. They had immortal nun Xian Ru, the young man of Mount Tianxian, and the 7 experts of Mount Li to protect them. They also had Red Staff, Celestial Child, and Ascetic Duda to take care of them. Only a few unlucky ones were crushed by the seawater. Even immortal nun Xian Ru could not save them in time and died. It was even worse for the heretic cultivators. Outside, there was the yellow river of 9 bends formation to open up the true water world. Inside, there was the river of blood formation and the 9 heavens and 10 earths formless demonic formation attacking from both sides. The 2 demonic cultivators could not even take care of themselves. The old demons hiding in the dark were ruthless and selfish. They would not spare any effort to look after them. In just a few breaths of time, they were almost all killed by river Styx. Of course, there were also a few vengeful spirits under Chun Ang's yellow river of Nine Bends formation. In the end, other than a few direct descendants of the old demons, there were only a few of them left. Thinking back to the gathering of the heretic cultivators and the grand occasion of the heretic cultivators and the few of them now, one could imagine how murderous River Styx was. He had almost killed all the demons and heretic cultivators in the Four Seas. That little demon River Styx is powerful. It's a pity that elder ancestors' Nine Heavens records devil shifting thunder was broken by those hypocrites of the righteous cultivators. They wanted to get rid of River Styx as a great enemy too. They lied and pretended to be hypocrites to stop elder ancestor from using such a powerful thunder technique. How despicable! Xian Yuan the Great glared at ascetic Duda, who was using the shapeless sword escape technique to hide himself. Divine Nun, Xian Ru shouted, Xian Yuan, old monster, how can we tolerate you when you use such a heinous treasure without regard for the lives of living beings within 10,000 miles? The young man from Tianqian Mountain glanced at the remaining demons and suddenly laughed. This old demon River Styx has probably killed more heretics than you and the others from the Mystic Door. Only Venerable Jew, who swore to eradicate all evil, can compare to him. If we let him continue like this, we might not even need Mauname to start a massacre. We can still subdue the great calamity. Divine Nun, Xian Ru sighed. Fellow Taoist River Styx is different from the others. He is the natural enemy of all Taoist cultivators. I have observed his mana. Although the bloody light is dense and his killing is swift and fierce, he is not evil, ruthless, but not demonic. He is the righteous path of the demonic path. He kills on behalf of the heavens. He is not like us who are afraid of tribulations. Instead, he views tribulations as cultivation. The true meaning behind his actions is terrifying. Upon hearing this, River Styx smiled and said, observing the way of the heavens, carrying out the way of the heavens. Only by killing all living beings can one attain enlightenment. For Divine Nun Xian Ru to be able to see this level, it shows how extraordinary the Buddhist Dharma is. The Tao of all living beings, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, forming the past and destroying the void, wind, earth, water, and fire. All of them are the same. You must know that the universe comes from order and chaos. All living beings come from life and die. Seeking immortality and attaining the Tao is from death to life, from chaos to order. This is an act that goes against the heavens. How can there be no response? Once this was said, Divine Nun Xian Ru's expression changed drastically. She put her palms together and said, Amit Ba, although what you said is not without reason, it lacks mercy. River Styx waved his hand and said, do you think that we are following the heavenly Tao and carrying out punishment on behalf of the heavens? That's wrong. We of the demonic path value our true nature the most. We seek to be free and unfettered. How can we become the slaves of the heavenly Tao? I control the killing calamity because this is the most in line with my nature. All problems, all contradictions, all causes and effects, I cannot tolerate being trapped by them. Only by killing can my heart be at ease, my thoughts clear, and I can enjoy freedom. All the emotions in the world, those that trap my heart, I will slay them. Heretical demons, those that block my way, I will slay them. Karma and retribution, those that block my eyes, I will slay them. Ethics and rules, binding my body and mind, I will slay them. Is there anything in the world that cannot be resolved? Who in the world cannot be killed? If this world is in chaos, when the conflicts and interests of all living beings reach a critical point, there will also be people who control killing and restore the order of the world. Therefore, the killing calamity is the creation of heaven and earth by man, the grooming of dragons and snakes by the earth, the shifting of stars by the sky, seeking freedom, fighting for freedom, cutting off karma, and opening up heaven and earth. If one does not control killing, how can one talk about freedom? Once these words were spoken, River Styx's emotions accumulated to the peak. It was as if he had drunk a fine wine. His blood vessels relaxed, and the killing intent in his heart surged. Suddenly, he raised his sword again. This time, there was no distinction between the righteous path and the heretical path, nor between the mystic door and the unorthodox path. The sword light split into countless layers of shadows, killing anyone in sight. His killing intent was blazing like fire, but his consciousness was as calm as ice. Ice and charcoal in a furnace. UN2 and Avicii were the most unbridled. The venerable poisonous dragon's bare legs looked dim when he saw the gentle sword light. With just a slight touch, he felt the murderous intent lingering like the spring rain, nourishing everything silently. In fact, it was more mellow and hidden, like a ball of raging fire that wanted to burn everything. How could he not know that this sword was more dangerous and overbearing than the previous one? His soul almost left his body, and he was about to flee in panic. Fellow poisonous dragon, you have schemed for the true inheritance of the blood sea in my body, and have schemed against many people in the dark. If others insist on entangling with you for 100 years, they can only settle the score when your fate is decided. But now, with a sword that does not take karma, I can kill you and destroy your soul. All karma and schemes will turn into ashes. Isn't this wonderful? Chun-Ong smiled faintly as he looked at Yuan-Tu's sword light, which was like an antelope's horn hanging on an antelope's horn, breaking all the treasures and spells that venerable poisonous dragon had released. With just one sword, the venerable poisonous dragon's sword pierced through the space between his eyebrows, and even his primordial spirit was killed. Indistinctly, a bit of his true spirit was cast into the Blood River formation. River Styx casually glanced at him, and the surrounding old demons were scared out of their wits. Even Xianyuan the Great, who had a winning attitude, could not help but change his expression. Divine Nun Xian Ru and ascetic stood aside. They were also a little shocked by the death of the Jinshin demon cult leader. After all, this was not a case of the righteous path plotting everything and using the general trend to force him to his death. Instead, he was killed in a head-on sword fight without being able to fight back. Yi Jing, who was watching from the outside, was already speechless. At this moment, she deeply felt that there was no hope for revenge, and she was filled with remorse. If I wasn't so arrogant, how could I have caused my brother's death? Shun Daoyu even reminded me. Xianyuan the Great saw that the people from the demonic path beside him were almost scared out of their wits. In order to regain their morale, he could only shout, "River Styx, pay with your life for my friend Poisonous Dragon." As soon as he finished speaking, he used the seven evils mystic heavenly net, which he was proud of in his life. It turned into a large piece of dark golden brilliance and shot out from his palm. This was the unique evil technique of Xianyuan Old Monster. It was different from the various spells cultivated by the Red Body cult leader Jiupan Pe, and it was extremely powerful. No matter how amazing an invisible protective talisman was, it could sense it. It did not need to see its target to be able to surround it. Its power was extremely great and extraordinary. Furthermore, his body was also enveloped by the demonic light. Talismans and flying swords could not harm him. This was originally a talisman with a form, but it was refined into formlessness by an extremely advanced evil technique. It could be combined with many of the old monster spells, and its power was even greater.